Prince Aquastide, holding a surprised blonde woman named Lady Tiara Rose in his arms. The scene then shifts to show Tiara Rose suddenly collapsing while at school, and Aquastide is the one who swiftly catches her as she faints. Her fiancé, Prince Heartknights, rushes over looking concerned and calls out her name, but she is barely conscious. A lovely art page shows Aquastide and Tiara Rose dancing together, while Heartknights and another woman, Akari, stand in the background of a fantasy kingdom filled with floating sweets. Tiara Rose then stands alone in her school uniform, looking dazed as she suddenly recovers memories of her past life. She remembers being a young Japanese girl playing an otome game on her computer. Her past self is shown holding the game's case, excited that she finally cleared the route for the character, Heartknights, and got a new CG image. Tiara Rose realizes with a shock that these are her memories from a previous life. She understands with a blush that she has been reborn into the world of that exact otome game, Ring of Lapis Lazuli. It was a super popular game that she loved, and its setting is the kingdom of Lapis Lazuli, as shown on the game's box art featuring Prince Heartknights. Tiara Rose reflects on her situation, realizing she was not reborn as the game's heroine. Unfortunately, she was reincarnated as the story's rival, the evil villainous Tiara Rose Lapis Clementil, who is the prince's fiancée. She knows the heroine's charms are very powerful and laments that if she were the heroine, she would be guaranteed a happy ending. She looks over at the heroine, Akari, and realizes that her situation is dire. Akari transferred to their school 2 years ago, and today is the day right before the graduation party, which serves as the game's final ending event. Tiara Rose panics, understanding that it is far too late to escape her fate. She visualizes the villainous bad end scenario from the game, where Prince Heartknights publicly breaks their engagement, condemning her. Later, Tiara Rose wakes up in the school's infirmary and is shocked to see Prince Heartknights himself standing by her bed. He is Heartknights Lapis Lazuli Lactimoth, the first prince of the kingdom and the main character from the game. Her heart pounds at seeing the character she used to play, but he coldly tells her to stay in bed while he arranges for a carriage. Heartknights then turns to her with a cold expression and asks if she collapsed just to get his attention, accusingly noting that he has been spending a lot of time with Akari recently. Tiara Rose is stunned by his words, realizing that the real-life Heartknights is completely different from the kind and loving character she knew from the game. She thinks to herself that this prince is scary and she cannot believe he is the same person who was so affectionate toward the player. She sits up in the bed, turning away from him, and says that she just isn't feeling well. She thanks him for his trouble, pointedly reminding him that she is, after all, his fiancée. Tiara Rose internally fumes as she thinks about how Heartknights is currently being conquered by the heroine Akari. She finds the name Akari to be unusual, noting that it sounds Japanese. A sudden realization strikes her. In the Ring of Lapis Lazuli game, the player was not allowed to set the heroine's name. As Tiara Rose coughs, she begins to wonder if Akari could also be a reincarnated person from Japan, just like her. Her thoughts are interrupted when Heartknights informs her that he has another engagement and will not be able to escort her to the graduation party tomorrow. He looks at her with cold, uncaring eyes. Tiara Rose understands this means she will have to attend the party all alone, without her own fiancé by her side. She puts on a polite smile and tells him that it isn't her place to stand in his way. Heartknights seems surprised that she agreed so quickly, while Tiara Rose internally fumes about how humiliating this is. She thinks that the original Tiara Rose from the game would have rightfully scolded him, telling him that a crown prince must not engage in such shameful and thoughtless behavior. Heartknights merely says that her assent saves him a lot of trouble and reminds her that he had warned her about her behavior before. He stands up to leave, stating he has an engagement he can't get out of. As he clicks the door shut, Tiara Rose is left alone in the room, feeling that her voice no longer reaches him and that tomorrow's ending is already decided. Lying in the infirmary bed, Tiara Rose sighs, filled with dread. She knows that if the next day follows the game's scenario, she will arrive at the party alone. Heartknights and Akari will be waiting for her, and then the condemnation event will begin. She wonders how they plan to condemn her, as she doesn't believe her actions were that bad. She quickly realizes it must be because of her nagging behavior. In her effort to keep the heroine from stealing her prince, Tiara Rose had been insistent on confronting Akari. She remembers an evening party where she scolded Akari, telling her that she shouldn't dance with a man who isn't her fiancé more than twice. She also recalls another time she warned Akari about touching a man who already had a fiancé. Tiara Rose reflects that while her words may have been harsh, she was simply following the rules of their society. As the daughter of a powerful duke set to inherit the Lapis name, she felt it was her duty to give warnings to the daughter of a lower-ranking earl. Tiara Rose thinks about her strict upbringing, as she was educated since childhood to one day become queen. She remembers her father, the prime minister, telling her with a serious face that if her future husband, the prince, ever started to continue down the wrong path, it was her duty to correct him. With a look of distress, Tiara Rose realizes that she was only acting as a proper fiancée should and that her harsh words were just her way of showing her love for Heart Knights. This is something she only understood after being reborn as Tiara Rose, but it seems he never understood her true intentions at all. She sits up in bed, shaking, and briefly considers skipping the graduation party entirely. However, she quickly dismisses the idea, knowing it would be improper for the daughter of a duke, especially one set to inherit the Lapis name, not to attend such an important event. Tiara Rose worries about causing trouble for her kind parents, who are shown smiling warmly with her in a fond memory. She then tries to remember what fate befell the villainess in the game's bad ending. She suddenly recalls the game's credits, which stated that Lady Tiara Rose was to be banished from the kingdom. A wave of relief washes over her. As long as it isn't a death sentence, she feels she can be fine. She begins to imagine a new life, picturing herself falling in love and living as a commoner. A small smile appears on her face as she thinks she might actually be happy. After all, she was a commoner in her former life, so she knows she'll be all right. She decides this future is much better than marrying that prince, which she bets would have been one long parade of miseries. Gazing out the infirmary window, Tiara Rose thinks about her favorite game character, Heart Knights. She reminds herself that the real man is not the kind person from the game. He is a different, colder person. As she wonders what will happen tomorrow, she hears a knock at the door. A voice from outside informs Lady Tiara Rose that her carriage has arrived. She thanks them, her resolve now firm. She decides she will go to the party tomorrow, accept the annulment of their engagement, and then quietly leave. The story then rewinds for a moment to introduce Prince Aquastede Marinforest, the crown prince of the neighboring kingdom. He is shown watching Tiara Rose from a distance, thinking that she is within his reach and wishing he could just talk to her or reach out his hand. The scene snaps back to the present moment, showing Tiara Rose's collapse again. The crowd chatters in confusion, and Heart Knights calls out, "Tiara?" as she wobbles and struggles to stand. Tiara Rose staggers, clutching her head in pain. Onlookers, including Akari, cry out in alarm as Tiara Rose begins to fall forward. But before she can hit the floor, Prince Aquastede lunges forward, catching her firmly in his arms. He then swoops Tiara Rose up into a princess carry and announces to the stunned room that he is taking her to the infirmary. As he walks past the other students, he wonders what could have possibly happened. He knows Tiara Rose is a healthy girl who always makes an effort to smile, so for her to suddenly collapse like this is very strange. As he carries her, Aquastede considers the immense pressure she must be under as the crown prince's fiancée. However, he dismisses this as the only reason, thinking that she is a tough young woman. His thoughts then turn to the recent rumors about the female transfer student, Akari, and how intimate she has become with Prince Heart Knights. Aquastede thinks about the gossip swirling around the school, suggesting that Heart Knights might cast aside his fiancée, Tiara Rose, and take Akari as his wife instead. Aquastede muses that if those rumors were true, then there would be nothing standing in the way of him proposing to Tiara Rose himself. He arrives at the infirmary and gently lays Tiara Rose down on one of the beds. He knows that if he, the crown prince of Marinforest, a kingdom larger and more powerful than Lapis, desired it, the preparations for their marriage would be completed swiftly. He thinks that while he doesn't intend to ignore her wishes, he would be prepared to proceed even if she resists. He closes the infirmary door, thinking to himself that this is the first time he has ever been able to touch his beloved. He knows his life as a student here will end with graduation tomorrow. The chapter ends with Aquastede looking at his hands, thinking that these flighty feelings will soon settle down, just as everyone knows they must. Tiara Rose in her room, sighing as she looks out the window. It has been one day since she regained her memories of being the villainess in this game world, and today is the fateful graduation party, which serves as the game's ending. Her lady-in-waiting, Philin, calls her name and asks if Tiara Rose is certain she doesn't want to ask her father for an escort. Philin reminds her that it is customary to be escorted by a relative if one lacks a partner, and arriving all alone would be very difficult. Tiara Rose, while stirring her tea, gently declines, explaining that her father, the counselor, will be busy attending to the king and she doesn't wish to bother him. She internally reflects that her father is a serious helicopter parent who would fly into a fit of rage if he saw her arrive alone. Philin, looking deeply concerned, takes Tiararos' hands and says she can't help but worry, offering to listen if anything is troubling her. Tiararos smiles warmly at Philin, thanking her and saying that just having Philin on her side is enough. As she sits by the window, Tiararos steels herself, knowing that the villainous condemnation event, known as the graduation party, will soon begin. To cheer her up, Philin brightly announces that she has prepared some treats. Tiararos' spirits lift as she thinks about her love for sweets, a passion she had in her past life that remained even after being reborn. She believes that sweets have always made bad things better. While Philin pours her tea, Tiararos silently fumes about Prince Heartknights, wondering why he isn't escorting her. She muses that while he must have a reason, she won't forgive him for this. Just as she thinks this, Philin hears a knock at the door. Philin goes to answer it while Tiararos wonders if it's a message from her professor. She takes a bite of a delicious-looking treat and closes her eyes in bliss, but she is suddenly jolted when the door bursts open and someone shouts her name. It is the heroine, Lady Akari, who rushes in wearing a beautiful gown and asks if Tiararos is feeling okay. Philin immediately scolds Akari for entering so suddenly, but Tiararos politely greets her and thanks her for the concern. Akari smiles and explains that she has been worried ever since Tiararos collapsed in the classroom the day before. Tiararos admires Akari's cute and luxurious dress, thinking she looks angelic, just like a game heroine should. Akari then mentions that Sir Heartknights has also been very worried, calling him kind. Tiararos finds this odd, thinking it's only natural for one's fiancé to be worried. At that very moment, Prince Heartknights himself enters the room behind Akari. Tiararos immediately gives a formal curtsy, greeting him while internally noting that he has brought another woman to her room right before the party, even after claiming he couldn't escort her. Heartknights coldly asks if she is well enough to attend, stating that he only came because Akari was so worried about her. Akari beams at him, saying it's a relief Tiararos is okay, and Heartknights agrees. Tiararos is annoyed, thinking they're acting like a couple, and realizes they just came to ensure she would be present for her own condemnation. She confirms that she rested well and will be at the party. Tiararos looks at her fiancé, thinking that he seems to have free time after all, though she knows she cannot say this aloud. Tiararos then turns to her maid with a worried expression, asking Philin how long it will take to finish her preparations and if they still have time. Philin suddenly panics, realizing they must start immediately or they will be late. Hearing this, Heartknight says they will excuse themselves for coming at a bad time, while Akari feigns surprise that Tiararos isn't ready yet. As they leave, Heartknights apologizes for the rush, and Tiararos watches them go, thinking they are barely hiding their true intentions. The moment the door slams shut, Philin explodes with rage. She fumes about their audacious behavior, ranting about how His Majesty's tie and Lady Akari's ribbon were made of the exact same color and cloth, something Tiararos had noticed as well. Philin declares that Akari has clearly crossed the line. Tiararos calmly adds that she had warned Akari about such things many times, but the heroine tends to forget. Tiararos silently reflects that they are so insistent because if she isn't on time to the party, it will ruin their entire plan to condemn her. Philin continues to rant, wondering why the prince doesn't admonish Akari for being so disrespectful, and declares she can't bear the thought of her precious lady marrying that man, suggesting Tiararos should just break off the engagement herself. Tiararos hides a smile and teases Philin about saying such things, and they share a giggle. Tiararos then thinks to herself that Philin is right, as Heartknights will undoubtedly break the engagement that very night. Philin is surprised that Tiararos isn't scolding her as she usually would. When Tiararos thanks her and agrees with her, Philin begins to wonder if her lady doesn't want this engagement after all. Philin resolves to do whatever she can to make Tiararos happy, even considering reporting the prince's behavior to her father, though she simply asks her lady not to overdo it. Later, Tiararos stands alone in her beautiful evening gown before the grand doors of the ballroom. She thinks about how in the game, the villainess entered last. She had tried to avoid that fate, but everyone has already gone inside. She knows that as soon as she opens these doors, her condemnation event will finally begin. Philin watches her with tearful concern, but Tiararos turns and gives her a brave, reassuring smile. She tells Philin that she is fine and that she will see her later. Tiararos then turns back to the doors, taking a deep breath to steady her nerves. Tiararos enters the ballroom, and the announcer proclaims the arrival of Tiararos Lapis Clementil. The crowd immediately begins to chatter, wondering why she has arrived all alone. At the front of the room, she sees Prince Heartknights and Akari standing side by side, flanked by all the other male conquest targets from the game. As she walks forward, Tiara Rose thinks to herself that it has now truly begun. Heart Knights calls out her name as she approaches. Tiara Rose finds it strange that all the other male characters are present, as she never interacted with them, and briefly wonders if it's a game update. As the crowd whispers about who the woman beside the prince is, Heart Knights addresses Tiara Rose. He declares loudly that he is proclaiming the break-off of their engagement, here and now. Tiara Rose remains poised and calmly asks him to please state his reason. Heart Knights, looking surprised by her composure, scoffs and asks if she can possibly claim not to understand why, telling her to ask her own heart. Tiara Rose, standing tall before the king and her father who are watching from the throne, replies firmly that she has done nothing to be ashamed of. She adds that if he wishes to make another woman his queen, then he should be the one to make the proper preparations for it. Enraged, Heart Knights accuses her of making many comments about Akari's countryside origins. He turns to Akari, who has tears in her eyes, and protectively asks if she was frightened. Akari replies that she was, but she felt okay because Heart Knights was with her. Tiara Rose's father begins to tremble with rage at the accusation, but Tiara Rose mentally calms him. Another man, Cliff Ilderun, the Knight's platoon commander, speaks up, stating that many subjects like farmers live outside the capital and support the country, and he cannot forgive anyone who looks down on them. Tiara Rose plainly states that this was never the reason for her remarks and tells Heart Knights she still doesn't understand the accusation. Heart Knights insists, reminding her that she told Akari to kneel and don't dance with him. Tiara Rose explains that she said those things precisely because he is the crown prince, and it is only natural to show such courtesy and respect. She can't help but think that the Heart Knights from the game was much smarter than this. Heart Knight seems to accept her point about kneeling but then demands to know why she told Akari not to dance with him. Tiara Rose explains that her warning was because Akari had danced with him more than twice. She asks the prince if he truly does not know the meaning of that. In her mind, she recounts the custom. Dancing with the same man twice signifies an engagement, while dancing 3 times is reserved only for married couples. She had also warned Akari about etiquette, such as kneeling when first meeting royalty, because Akari was unfamiliar with their customs. Tiara Rose presses her point, describing how Akari asked him to dance and they did so twice, right in front of her. She asks him if he understands how humiliating it was for him to so obviously favor Akari over his own fiancée, and asks if he can truly fault her behavior. Heart Knights counters by stating that Akari always told him Tiara Rose had viciously attacked her. Tiara Rose looks at him in disbelief, asking if he truly believes she is that kind of person. She immediately realizes from his expression that he never once tried to verify Akari's claims. Tiara Rose then delivers a critical blow, stating that she and Lady Akari were never once alone together. There were always other ladies present with them. Heart Knights is visibly shocked, stammering as he asks if others were there. Tiara Rose asks if he didn't even bother to look into that. Guests in the crowd confirm her story, mentioning that Tiara Rose's followers were there, and Tiara Rose mentally corrects them, thinking of Lady Fleuran and Lady Marietta as her dear friends. Seeing her story unravel, Akari bursts into tears, crying out that Tiara Rose is being vicious, and claiming she never said anything to hurt her feelings. This time, however, the crowd begins to whisper, questioning who the truly vicious one is and calling Akari's outburst an insult. Tiara Rose firmly tells Akari to refrain from speaking about her important friends in such a manner. She then turns back to Heart Knights with a sad, knowing smile, acknowledging that his heart belongs to Akari. She states that even so, none of her actions were cruel. She asks him to confirm his charge. He wishes to break their engagement because he believes she was cruel to Akari. Heart Knights hesitates, then agrees. Tiara Rose feels a small sense of relief, thinking this might be a more peaceful ending than the games, one where she isn't banished. But Heart Knights isn't finished. He declares that because her explanations were lacking, Akari was hurt all the same, and that her attitude towards the future queen cannot be excused. He then officially breaks the engagement, naming Akari as his new fiancée. Tiara Rose is stunned, thinking he must be an idiot. As she begins to tremble, knowing her father is about to explode, Heart Knights delivers the final blow. He proclaims Tiara Rose banished from the kingdom. Just as Tiara Rose is reeling from the shock, a clear voice rings out, commanding Prince Heart Knights to stop. A man's voice asks Heart Knights if his own words aren't far more vicious. The newcomer, Prince Aquasteed, walks toward Tiara Rose with a gentle smile. He tells her it's okay and to take heart, calling her the most beautiful woman there, one who has every right to be present. Tiara Rose is stunned, her trembling immediately stopping as she stares at him, unable to believe that help has come at the very last second. Prince Aquastide steps between Tiara-Rose and Heart Knights. Tiara-Rose's heart thumps as she looks at him, thinking he is like a prince from a fairy tale. She has no idea what is happening, as this event was never in the game. Heart Knights angrily tells Aquastide that this is none of his business, but Aquastide calmly replies that he believes it is. He then turns to face Tiara-Rose and asks her to confirm that she is, in fact, no longer engaged. Tiara-Rose can only nod. Prince Aquastide then smiles at her and, in front of the entire silent ballroom asks, "Would you become my queen?" The final panel shows Heart Knights and Akari looking completely shocked, with Akari crying out, "What?" right where the last one left off, as Prince Aquastide asks Tiara-Rose if she would become his queen. This sudden proposal leaves Akari screaming in shock while Tiara-Rose herself is left completely confused. A title page for the third chapter shows Prince Heart Knights looking annoyed while sitting next to a calm Prince Aquastide. Tiara-Rose is stunned and tries to process this, thinking about who Prince Aquastide Marine Forest is. She remembers he is the crown prince of the neighboring country, Marine Forest, who had been studying at her academy for a year. In her past life, she knew he wasn't a capture target in the first game but was announced as a main character for the sequel, a game she tragically died before getting to play. She recalls seeing his handsome character design and being interested in him, noting both his gentle smile and a hint of darkness. Back in the present, she is so confused she thinks it must be a dream, never imagining she would be interacting with the real person. Aquastide acknowledges she must be shocked by his sudden request. Prince Aquastide then kneels before a stunned Tiara-Rose. He takes her hand and gently kisses it, asking her to please at least consider his proposal. Tiara-Rose is blushing and panicking internally, her heart pounding, as she has no immunity to this kind of princely behavior. She thinks that even Prince Heart Knights never treated her this way. Her father, watching from the side, looks relieved and smiles, even nodding in approval. Tiara-Rose, still blushing, manages to say, "Thank you," feeling a sense of happiness from the prince's sentiment. This moment is shattered by Akari, who yells for them to wait, muttering that this can't be happening. Akari stomps forward angrily, pointing out that Tiara-Rose was Prince Heart Knights' fiancée just a moment ago, and now Aquastide wants to make her his fiancée. She yells that she believes there is someone better for Prince Aqua, and Heart Knights is seen in the background muttering about her improper use of the prince's name. Akari then grabs Prince Aquastide's arm, declaring that this isn't right. Heart Knights tries to warn her who she is touching, but Akari ignores him and tells Tiara-Rose to let go of the prince. Tiara-Rose, who isn't even touching him, thinks about how Akari's insolence could cause a diplomatic incident between their kingdoms. Aquastide just shrugs Akari's hand off his arm and turns to Tiara-Rose, thanking her for being concerned about him. Akari tries to argue, saying Prince Aqua is kind so he wouldn't be angry. Aquastide cuts her off with a shockingly cold expression, and Akari flinches back in shock. He asks if she acts this way with the full knowledge that he is the first prince of the kingdom of Marine Forest. He calls her behavior insolence, and orders someone to take her away. Tiara-Rose immediately steps forward and apologizes terribly to Prince Aquastide, but he tells her to raise her head, as she has no need to apologize. Prince Heart Knights then steps up and bows deeply, offering his own apology. Aquastide acknowledges him and says he will forgive him. As Akari is dragged away yelling, Tiara-Rose feels pure joy at having been saved. Heart Knights then approaches, saying he must stop Tiara-Rose from being rude, but Tiara-Rose's father, the Marquis, cuts him off, asking Heart Knights if he intends to shame their country any further. The king himself then bows to Aquastide, apologizing for the insult. Aquastide graciously says he was the one who interfered. The king thanks him for his leniency, and then Aquastide formally asks both the king and Marquis Clementil for permission to be engaged to Tiara-Rose. The king smiles, saying it would be a wonderful bond between their countries, and adds that since his son bears responsibility for the incident, Tiara-Rose's original engagement is entirely called off. Aquastide asks Tiara-Rose's father if he is worried, but the Marquis says he has heard much about the prince and is sure he will treat his daughter well. The Marquis explains that while he approved of the first engagement, his daughter was hurt, and so he wishes to respect her decision. Aquastide smiles, calling him an ideal parent, and says he will visit again when Tiara-Rose agrees. The king then dismisses Heart Knights, telling him to leave immediately, and tells Tiara-Rose to go home and leave the rest to her father. He apologizes to the guests and invites them to enjoy the party. Aquastide tells Rose he was too hasty and asks if she would spare some time to go out with him later. Tiara-Rose, thinking he is very kind, gladly agrees. As they leave, Tiara Rose thinks that she escaped being banished, but now has a new, unexpected proposal from Prince Aquastede. He offers to escort her home, and she accepts, wondering what will happen now that the game's ending is finished. In the carriage, Tiara Rose is blushing and panicking, unable to think of what to say as she sits next to the prince from the sequel she never got to play. She glances at him, wondering why he would propose to her, the villain. Aquastede smiles, thinking he's so happy he could dance. Tiara Rose is mortified when she realizes he saw her looking at him, and she quickly apologizes. He tells her there is no need to apologize and says he is honored by her attention, asking if this means he can be hopeful. Tiara Rose's heart thumps, and she asks him why he proposed. He explains that he used to watch her from the library window while she was always reading. Tiara Rose is shocked, asking if he means behind the library. She thinks about how she used to read under a tree there to gain knowledge as the future queen and also so she could secretly eat sweets. Aquastede confirms, saying her expressions would change as she read, and he calls it so adorable. He describes how she would look serious one moment and then blush with a shy expression the next. He confesses that when she was moved to tears, he desperately wanted to hold her. Tiara Rose covers her face, begging him to forget that, but he gently takes her hand and says that would be impossible. He explains that watching her every day, he slowly became enthralled by her and asks to see more of her. He confesses he had to endure his feelings because she was Heart Knight's fiancée, and he couldn't steal another royal's bride. He had planned to just return home after his year of study and try to forget her. But today's graduation party was a stroke of luck. He admits he is a crown prince who fixed his gaze on one woman and waited for a chance to take her from her fiancé, and he was desperate not to lose that chance. He smiles and asks, "Am I not terrible?" Tiara Rose, blushing, says she isn't worried about the banishment, just happy to be going home. Aquastede then takes her hand again, asking her on a date and if she will make time. Tiara Rose's heart pounds as she realizes this is the kind of character he is. He teases that he might just abduct her. Tiara Rose smiles, saying she has plenty of time now that she has graduated and no longer has bridal training. He suggests a date 3 days from now, and Tiara Rose happily agrees, saying she looks forward to it. He promises to pick her up. As they ride, Tiara Rose worries if they can really be together and says she still can't believe he finds her favorable. He leans in close, whispering that he cannot help but like her when she is so adorable. Just as Tiara Rose is blushing, he pulls back with a smile, stating that, unfortunately, they have arrived at her mansion. In the final scene, Akari is shown confined in a room in a different castle, wondering why this is happening when she was supposed to be with Prince Aqua. A castle, where Prince Heart Knight stands outside a guarded door. He demands that the guard open the door, but the guard refuses, explaining that he is under strict orders from His Majesty to reject all visitors. Heart Knight, looking worried as he thinks of Akari, insists that he will not be long and just wants to see how she is doing. The guard hesitates, and Heart Knight pleads with him, saying he needs to speak with Akari to determine if he has made the wrong decision. He recalls the rumors that he had become a fool after getting involved with her while remembering her happy face. The guard finally relents and gives the prince just 10 minutes. Heart Knight thanks him as the door opens, and an overjoyed Akari runs to him with a bright smile, calling his name. With tears in her eyes, she exclaims that she was so bored, as she was not allowed to leave the room and had nothing to do. Heart Knight looks at her, his mind on Prince Aquastede's proposal to Tiara Rose, and he silently hopes that he is not being fooled by Akari. He explains to her that his engagement to Tiara Rose has been officially annulled, though he is not sure if Tiara Rose and Aquastede are engaged yet. Akari is shocked by this news, immediately assuming Tiara Rose must have been getting close to Aquastede from the very beginning. She then clutches Heart Knight's arm, wondering if everything Tiara Rose said at the party was true. She admits that she remembers Tiara Rose warning her harshly, but she felt safe because Heart Knight was always with her and she knew she could rely on him. Heart Knight gently pushes her away and asks if something is troubling her, offering to listen. He suspects that Tiara Rose may have said something to her, while Akari mutters to herself, annoyed that the villainous daughter is still involved after the main story has ended. Akari tearfully asks Heart Knight when they will finally be able to be together. He gently holds her face, telling her he also does not want things to end this way. He explains that he must speak with his father tonight and will tell her the outcome then, asking her to please bear with the situation. Akari agrees to wait. He tells her he has not seen Tiara Rose since the party and asks her to wait just a little longer. Akari's expression turns worried, and she suddenly changes the subject, urging Heart Knight to warn the king about Prince Aquastede. She claims she wants to protect Heart Knights before Tiara Rose does something horrible to him, just as she supposedly did to her. Heart Knights looks visibly tired, wishing Akari would focus more on their own difficult situation instead of Tiara Rose. The guard then opens the door, announcing that the prince's time is up. Heart Knights apologizes to Akari for being unreasonable and tells her he must leave now. He explains that while it will be hard, she must stay there a little longer, but a maid will be available to get her anything she needs. Akari pouts and begs him not to go, rushing toward him as he leaves. The guard blocks her path, and Heart Knights promises he will return before the door clicks shut. Later, Prince Heart Knights has a formal dinner with his father, the king. The king states that he heard Heart Knights visited Lady Akari. Heart Knights apologizes for his self-centered actions, insisting the visit was necessary. When the king asks if he learned anything from their conversation, Heart Knights looks down, thinking of Tiara Rose. He silently admits to himself that he should have listened more to what Tiara Rose had to say. He clenches his fist and confesses to his father that he didn't listen to Tiara Rose at all, and instead chose to believe everything Akari told him was the truth. The king sternly tells him that his actions were not commendable, neither as royalty nor as a human being, and reminds him that he had bound him and Tiara Rose together from a young age. Heart Knights looks at a memory of Akari telling him she is fond of him, and tells his father that he met Akari and thought hard about their relationship. The king firmly rebukes this, stating that Tiara Rose, in contrast, always understood her position and could truly see the kingdom, understanding the different roles of commoners and nobles. He explains that Tiara Rose watched over Heart Knights so steadfastly precisely because he was so important to her. Heart Knights, filled with regret, finally says he understands. He then remembers all the times Tiara Rose had corrected him, holding his hand when he was shaking, telling him they would be strong together, scolding him for running away from his studies, warning him not to misuse his authority over the knights, and even offering to help him master more languages. Heart Knights tells his father he understands now, and the king replies that this realization means he has finally matured. Heart Knights sadly admits that he didn't believe Tiara Rose and ended up hurting her deeply. 2 days after the party, Tiara Rose is shown sighing, bracing herself for what is to come. She and her father have been summoned by the king to a grand hall. She wonders why they are there, even having a fleeting, comical thought that the game's plot was revised and she is about to be thrown in prison. The king gestures to a long line of royal portraits, and Tiara Rose is startled. He reminds her that she and Heart Knights came to this hall once before, and she confirms it, remembering they were very young. She recalls the memory fondly. She and Heart Knights were both 10 years old, having been engaged since they were 6. They explored the castle with childish innocence, holding hands. Tiara Rose remembers worrying that they needed permission to enter the hall, but the young prince proudly told her it was fine because he, as a member of the royal family, permitted it. He then excitedly pointed to a portrait of his father, the king. Tiara Rose smiles at the memory, thinking how cute he was back then. The young prince had proclaimed that one day his own portrait would hang right next to his father's. The king confirms this memory, adding that Heart Knights had spoken of Tiara Rose with great pride that day. The king then grows serious and tells Tiara Rose that Heart Knight's portrait will now never be put up in this hall. Tiara Rose is stunned, instantly understanding that this decision means his right to ascend the throne has been revoked. The king then bows deeply to Tiara Rose, offering his truest apology for the terrible thing his son has done to her. Tiara Rose is shocked and immediately begs him to raise his head, insisting he has no need to apologize to her. The king thanks her for her generous heart and explains that they have thoroughly investigated the incident, concluding that she has endured far too much. Tiara Rose is still processing the punishment, asking if this really means Heart Knights is no longer the heir. The king confirms it, stating that Heart Knights is not worthy of this place. Despite everything, Tiara Rose worries that the punishment is too harsh, suggesting that they are only 16 and he will surely mature. The king is visibly moved by her kindness, noting that she still worries for him after all he did and telling her she was far too good for his son. With a look of finality, the king states that this is his decision and he will not change his mind. Tiara Rose understands it would be rude to argue further. The king's expression then softens into a smile as he suddenly changes the subject, asking Tiara Rose what her thoughts are concerning Prince Aquastide. Tiara Rose is so taken aback by the sudden shift in conversation that she blurts out, "What?" She immediately covers her mouth, flustered that she exclaimed without thinking. Her father joins in, explaining that Prince Aquastide will be returning to his country soon and that while he will respect her wishes, he wants to know how she truly feels. Tiara Rose blushes, looking at an image of Aquastide in her mind, and shyly says that he is much too good for someone like her. Both her father and the king seem to enjoy her flustered reaction, chuckling as they realize she clearly does not hate him. Tierros's father then informs her that her engagement to Heart Knights is officially annulled and that Prince Aquistede has already submitted an official request for her hand in marriage. He praises Aquistede as a perceptive and great future king who defended her at the party, stating he is a better fit for her than Heart Knights. He adds that the prince is very fond of her and is willing to wait for her decision. Tierros looks at the two men and says she is thankful, but she doesn't feel Aquistede would want her answer right now, so she must give it on another occasion. Her father accepts this. Tierros looks at the kind king, thinking that she will most likely be leaving this country soon. The king simply smiles at her and says, "Please become happy." Back in her room, Tierros feels exhausted. She sits on her bed, cuddling a fluffy pillow, and considers that becoming Aquistede's bride is the most likely path forward. She thinks that the game is now over and wonders if her life will finally become normal. However, she finds it hard to imagine that she, the game's villainess, would be chosen by the sequel's main love interest. Her heart begins to beat faster as she spins around her room. She reflects on the strange feeling of having her memories as Tierros coexisting with her memories from Japan. She admits she was excited when Aquistede's character was first announced because he was exactly her type, and she deeply wishes she could have played that sequel. She then remembers that the heroine, Akari, also seemed to have an interest in Prince Aquistede. Tierros pictures Akari holding onto Aquistede's arm and wonders why, since he wasn't even a capture target in the first game. She dismisses the thought, deciding she wouldn't want a heroine who is only interested in men with authority. Feeling tired, she decides to call it a night and walks toward her bed. Just then, she hears a distinct tapping sound coming from her window. She looks around, wondering if someone is playing a trick by throwing rocks, only to look down into her garden and see Prince Aquistede himself standing there, looking up at her. The perspective of Prince Aquistede, beginning at the Royal Lapis Lazuli Academy's graduation party. He is observing the event and thinks that something is wrong as he watches Prince Heart Knights and a student named Akari attempting to punish another girl. The girl they are trying to convict is Lady Tierros, who Aquistede notes is Heart Knights' own betrothed. The prince is accusing her of having harassed Lady Akari. As Aquistede watches Tierros stand with a composed expression while Akari cries next to Heart Knights, he thinks to himself, "I don't like this," and begins to step forward. He approaches King Alexander Lapis Lazuli Lactimith, who apologizes for his son causing trouble during a festive occasion. Aquistede smiles and assures him it is not a problem at all, while privately thinking that this is a godsend and a very favorable opportunity for him. Seizing the moment, Aquistede boldly requests the king's permission to ask for Lady Tierros' hand in marriage, right there and then. The king is visibly shocked, asking Aquistede if he understands what he is saying by proposing to the fiancé of another country's crown prince. Aquistede reflects that while Heart Knights is trying to pass a sentence on his fiancée, Tierros is known to be incredibly polite and gentle, and no one would disagree that the fault truly lies with Heart Knights. Before the king can say more, Tierros' father, Prime Minister Schnaus Lapis Clementile, interjects and immediately gives Aquistede his permission. The king tells Schnaus that he can't just move on ahead with the decision, but the Prime Minister, identified as a doting father, insists that Tiara is his daughter and there should be no problem with him, her father, making that decision. He is internally annoyed, wondering what is happening to his adorable Tiara. Schnaus then politely tells Prince Aquistede that he is sure his daughter will be pleased to hear his words. Aquistede thanks him for the blessing, promising to return for a formal greeting if Tierros gives him the answer he wishes for. Schnaus adds, however, that he cannot agree to any marriage that his daughter does not desire. Aquistede replies that he understands and that this is all he requires. He then thinks to himself that he does not want Tierros to remain in this place a moment longer and decides he will take her away. As he begins to walk toward her, he recalls the very first time he ever saw her. The scene flashes back to the Academy's library, where Aquistede's attendant, Elliot, finds him watching someone out the window. Elliot chuckles, observing that the prince seems to spend more time admiring that flower than reading his books. Aquistede agrees, saying her expressions change so much that he never gets bored. Elliot then gently reminds the prince that Lady Tierros is Prince Heart Knights' fiancée. Aquistede, still gazing out the window, replies sadly, "I know." He was aware it was an impossible love, and he also mused on how she, a nobleman's daughter, would read in the garden rather than at home. He would fantasize about how good it would be to attend parties just to talk to her or ask her to dance. He imagined wrapping her in his arms, but knew that if he ever did, he would not want to let her go. In truth, he simply wanted to talk to her, read books next to her, and eat sweets by her side. He lamented that it is often said a first love is not meant to be. However, back in the present at the party, his feelings wish to break through. He steps forward and his voice rings out, "Stop right there, Prince Harkinghit." He confronts him, asking, "Aren't your words much more vociferous than hers?" before turning to Tiaros. The side story ends with Aquastide's inner thought. The flower that I could only gaze at can now be in my arms. An extra comic shows Aquastide's attendant Elliot noting that the prince now has a fan club and is so popular. Aquastide, looking bored, just says, "What?" Nearby, two female students whisper, wondering what happened to Lady Tiaros, who has been sighing for a while. They wonder if the book she is reading is boring. Elliot tries to get the prince's attention about his fan club, but Aquastide pays no attention and continues to stare out the window at Tiaros. Tiaros, meanwhile, is deep in her sweets brain, thinking that the sweets she made yesterday were lacking something and wondering how to make them more delicious. Elliot realizes the prince has no interest in the fan club and is only wondering if Tiaros will look in his direction. Princess Tiaros stands on her balcony at night. She is completely shocked when Prince Aquastide suddenly appears, and she thinks the moon looks lovely. She is secretly thrilled, believing he came just to see her, which feels even more special than an event in the game. Prince Aquastide apologizes for his abrupt arrival while he jumps and steps onto her balcony. Tiaros is flustered, asking what he is doing there all by himself. He explains he came quietly because there was something he just had to show her, and he doubted that Marquis Clementil would permit such a late-night visit. He apologizes again for showing up so suddenly and clarifies that he won't ask to come into her room. Prince Aquastide then asks Lady Tiaros if she knows about the Star Festival of Fairies. She confirms that she does know of it, and he looks glad, explaining he came specifically because he wanted to show it to her. Tiaros is very surprised by this. Tiaros internally recalls that the Star Festival of Fairies is a special event from the game, The Ring of Lapis Lazuli. It is an event the heroine can only see with the character she has become the most intimate with, and she remembers images of the heroine with various characters. She is confused and wonders if they can see it right now, as she doesn't think today is the correct day for the event and believes only the heroine and a capture target can trigger it. The prince states that while it isn't the right time, the power of the fairies will help him. Tiaros thinks his ability to use the power of fairies is amazing. The prince explains that fairies of the forest, sea, and sky live in Marin Forest. Once every year on a summer night, these fairies cause stars to fall from the sky. He adds that it is usually only viewable from the Marin Forest Kingdom, but because Lapis Lazuli is a neighboring country, there are places where it is visible. He then asks Tiaros to give him her hand, and she nervously agrees. He holds her hand and calls out to the fairies as a gentle wind begins to blow. Tiaros' heart pounds as the prince holds her hand. He notices her and comments that a girl shouldn't wear such light clothing so late at night, asking if she is cold. He then gently drapes his own coat over her shoulders. She thanks him but immediately worries that His Highness might catch a cold himself. Prince Aquastide smiles, reassuring her that he has been toughened by training and that his only worry is for her health. He apologizes for his forcefulness and asks her forgiveness, noting she must be tired. Lady Tiaros starts to reply, admitting that she is actually very happy. She confirms again that she is very happy too. The prince chuckles and gently tells her to look at the sky. Tiaros suddenly panics, wondering what she should do and stammering. When she finally looks up at the sky, she is stunned, whispering, "No way." The night sky is filled with countless falling stars, and she declares that it's beautiful. Prince Aquastide watches her reaction, relieved, and says he's glad. Tiaros is amazed, thinking about how the prince managed to do this as she looks at him in awe. She recognizes the beautiful scene as the event CG from the game. Prince Aquastide then slowly and smoothly reaches out to cup her face, telling her he is so glad that she likes it. Tiaros is flustered by his touch. His gaze feels like sweet honey, and his touch is respectful and gentle, as if he is handling treasure. Tiaros' heart pounds again, and she feels as if she is being sucked in by His Highness. Breaking the spell, Tiaros offers to make him a cup of tea, saying she will prepare her favorite one for him. Prince Aquastide politely states that he must refuse her kind offer. Tiaros then panics internally, realizing she just invited a man into her room and worrying that he must think she is improper. She quickly revises her offer, suggesting she bring the tea set out to where they are. The prince chuckles, saying if she insists that much, he can hardly refuse and will gladly partake. Tiaros prepares black tea, adding honey since it is cold, and also brings madeleines and macarons, hoping he will like it all. She brings the tray out to the balcony and asks the prince if he is cold, offering to bring him something to cover himself with. He replies that he is fine. Tiaros then asks for her coat back, but he insists that he wants her to wear it. Tiaros fidgets, blushing as she realizes the truth is that the coat is filled with Prince Aquastide's scent. They sit together on a sofa, and Prince Aquastide mentions he didn't know there was a space like this here. Tiaros explains that she often reads there when the weather is nice. She thinks to herself that this is her secret place because it's connected to her room but hidden around a corner, which is why she likes it. Sitting there with him makes her feel as if she's doing something wrong, and she blushes. Tiaros nervously serves the tea, saying she hopes he likes it. He takes a sip and confirms it's delicious, asking if it contains honey. Tiaros smiles brightly and says it is, explaining she is fond of honey because it's good for you and pairs well with sweets. He observes that this must be her favorite. Tiaros becomes embarrassed, wondering what she is supposed to do or if she should lean on him, but then reminds herself they aren't engaged or even lovers. Her heart pounds as the feeling that they are doing something wrong persists, making her want to scream. She mentions she also prepared sweets but realized how late it is, adding she is sure His Highness would not eat such things at this hour. Prince Aquastide replies that since it is something she prepared, he will, of course, have some. He takes a madeleine and eats it, saying as he finds it delicious. Tiaros is relieved but privately worries if he is forcing himself and if he's alright. Feeling relieved, Tiaros happily explains that she loves madeleines and that they go well with tea, hot chocolate, and all kinds of drinks. She tells him she usually sits here reading and trying out her new creations. She suddenly stops, horrified as she wonders why she is talking so much about sweets to the prince of another country. She knows she likes sweets so much she can't stop once she starts and worries if he finds it off-putting. Prince Aquastide simply observes that she really is fond of sweets and books. Tiaros apologizes, feeling she was ill-mannered. However, the prince smiles and tells her he wouldn't say that at all. He says she looks very adorable when she talks about sweets and that he could listen to her forever. Tiaros blushes and asks him not to indulge her so much. She reflects internally that she has loved otome games and sweets since her previous life, and because she cannot play games here, her love for sweets has taken over. As Tiaros blushes and glances at him, she thinks that Prince Aquastide is sweeter than any confection. She thinks he is definitely sweeter than any sugary treat and much sweeter than honey and sugar. She imagines marrying him and feels she is likely to melt on their wedding day. Prince Aquastide sees her blushing and chuckles, thinking it's cute how even her ears have turned red. The scene then changes to the day of their date. Tiaros is being prepared by her maid, Philin, who fastens a coral accessory, a Marin Forest specialty, into her hair. Tiaros asks if it's too much. A note explains that ever since the graduation party, all the servants in the mansion have a less-than-friendly feeling toward Prince Heartknights and, on the other hand, seem to worship Prince Aquastide. Philin smirks and teases Tiaros, asking if she finds the wait unbearable and wondering aloud what will happen when Prince Aquastide arrives. Tiaros insists that is not true at all, but Philin interrupts, declaring that Tiaros is the least composed one. Philin says she is so thankful that Lady Tiaros was saved from that idiot prince. She then stops herself, saying they should stop talking about him or it will ruin the mood, just as she announces that Prince Aquastide has arrived. Tiaros says they should not keep him waiting and begins to walk down the stairs, her heart pounding. Philin calls out to Lady Tiaros, telling her that if she ends up not returning, she will cooperate and create an alibi for her. Tiaros is flustered by Philin's words and exclaims that she shall return as is proper. Prince Aquastide takes her hand as Philin waves them off, telling her ladyship to take care. They walk toward the carriage as, finally, the date begins. Tiaros and Prince Aquastide on their date, walking through a beautiful field. Tiaros thanks him for bringing her, saying she had no idea such a wonderful place existed. Prince Aquastide is simply glad that she likes it. Tiaros internally wonders what a waste it is that this perfect date spot was never in the game, but she feels happy that she gets to see it with Prince Aquastide. They arrive at a spot where a table and chairs have been prepared, and Tiaros is impressed by the royal maids, as she didn't even notice them working. Prince Aquastide observes that she must be tired from the carriage ride and suggests they take a break for some tea. He considerately offers her his hand, which she accepts with a thank you. Tiaros' heart pounds as she reflects that this is her very first date, She had never been escorted so elegantly or been on a date like this with Prince Heartknights. As they sit, Prince Aquasteed asks if Tiara Rose is cold, but she reassures him that she is alright, finding the breeze perfect and the sun warm. He begins to pour tea, explaining that he had his favorite prepared for today and hopes she will like it too. Tiara Rose is struck by how friendly the crown prince is. She thinks about how different he is from how he was at the graduation party, realizing he is the type of person who can separate his private and public life. She had worried it might be stifling if he was so upright in private, but seeing him like this makes her feel closer, and the memory makes her heart beat fast. Prince Aquasteed asks if she would prefer milk or lemon in her tea, personally recommending milk. Tiara Rose accepts the milk, noting the tea's lovely smell as he hands her the cup. She mentions that she also prefers milk during winter and early spring, and he smiles, commenting that they have similar tastes as he does the same. Tiara Rose then excuses herself, saying she has something for him. She rustles in her belongings and pulls out a neatly wrapped package, revealing cookies she baked herself. She explains that she is the one who baked them, so she isn't sure if they will suit his taste. Prince Aquasteed is overjoyed, exclaiming that she made them for him and that they smell amazing. Tiara Rose internally recalls that when her past life memories returned, so did her dessert recipes. She had wanted to bake a cake but chose cookies since they are easier to carry and she was unsure of their plans. Prince Aquasteed takes a bite and is amazed, telling her he never knew she could make something so delicious. After enjoying a cookie, Prince Aquasteed playfully holds one up to Tiara Rose and tells her to say, "The." Tiara Rose is completely shocked and flustered, blushing deeply as she stammers. She wonders if he was always this way. She knew he was sweet from their last encounter, but this is on another level. She feels dizzy, wondering what kind of expression she should make since she has never done this before, but she also feels it would be rude to decline an offer from the crown prince. Tiara Rose shyly leans in and takes a bite of the cookie from his fingers, covering her mouth as she crunches. Prince Aquasteed chuckles at her reaction. Tiara Rose turns bright red and squeezes her hands in her lap, thinking it is all so embarrassing. As Prince Aquasteed watches her, his own heart beats. He thinks to himself that his plan was to get Tiara Rose flustered so she would notice him more, and now he wonders if he can go even further. He leans closer and tells her she is adorable even when she eats. He then says he has a request and asks if he may call her Tiara. Tiara Rose's heart dumps wildly at his sudden closeness. Although she thinks using nicknames might be rude, she agrees, saying, "Of course, Prince Aquasteed." She reflects that while it was sudden and embarrassing, she felt no disgust, unlike when Prince Heartknights used to call her Tiara, which made her feel nothing. Prince Aquasteed is glad and replies by asking Tiara to call him Aqua. Tiara Rose is so happy she feels she could go crazy, and she nervously stammers, Prince Aqua?" He smiles and tells her he is so happy. In the next moment, Prince Aquasteed gently pulls Tiara Rose into a hug. Her heart pounds frantically, and she panics, worrying that he will hear it beating like crazy. As she hesitantly places her hands on his chest, she is surprised to feel that Prince Aqua's heart is also beating loudly. She realizes she is not the only one who is nervous. Feeling it is all too embarrassing, she hesitates, and he pulls back slightly with a smile, saying, "Too bad." Tiara Rose is so embarrassed she cannot look at him. Prince Aquasteed apologizes, admitting he was being pretty hasty. He squeezes her hand and says, "But, Tiara," before teasingly adding that she looks like she wants him to kiss her. Before she can react, he leans in and kisses her, whispering that he can't help but want her when she is near him. He pulls back and says, "Too bad," for a second time. Tiara Rose notes he has said it twice, realizing he must want her that much. He admits he had planned on slowly building up their dates, but he just can't. Tiara Rose thinks that if he keeps smiling at her so sweetly, she doesn't know what will happen. Prince Aquasteed then asks Tiara if he can make another request. She replies that of course he can, if it is within her power. He smiles brightly and asks if she will feed him more cookies. Surprised by this kind of request, Tiara Rose nervously holds a cookie to his mouth as he opens it and says, "Ah." Tiara Rose thinks it feels like feeding a dog as she says, "Ah, dash." He chews the cookie, declaring it delicious and thanking her. He praises her baking, saying the cookies have a subtle flavor and he could eat a ton of them. He sighs, thinking to himself that he is so happy he might just lose control. He looks at the blushing Tiara Rose and thinks she is just like a strawberry, musing that perhaps he compares her to food because she is cute enough to eat. He sighs happily again, then his thoughts turn serious. He considers that he doesn't have permission to propose to her right now, and he wonders what will happen when he is finally allowed to ask, a worry he never imagined he would have. Tiara Rose notices his quiet mood and gently says his new name, Prince Aqua. Later, as they stand in the field of flowers, Prince Aquasteed gently strokes her hair. Tiara Rose thinks that this is the first time anyone has made her heart beat so hard. She decides she must ask her father for approval of the engagement proposal. As she looks at her home, the manor, she wonders if she, the villainess, is truly allowed to be this happy. Back in her room, Tiara Rose paces back and forth, fidgeting nervously. Her maid, Philin, notices her behavior and giggles, asking if the date was a success. Tiara Rose is too embarrassed to say what happened, recalling how they fed each other cookies and how it was her first time doing such a thing with a man. She just wishes her father would hurry home. Philin presses, asking what actually happened. Tiara Rose is flustered, her mind replaying the moment Prince Aquasteed noticed her hairpin and asked if that meant he could be hopeful, his soft voice still ringing in her ears. Philin guesses, asking if he kissed her. Tiara Rose shakes her head frantically, exclaiming, "No way," and that she couldn't possibly do more, as just being fed cookies nearly gave her a heart attack. Philin says that's a bit disappointing but smiles, noting that it's clear Prince Aquasteed thinks very highly of her. Tiara Rose blushes and agrees, saying she is very glad that he is so kind and considerate. She continues, saying, Prince Aqua's gaze is always kind, he truly looks at her, and she is sure he would never upset her. Philin suddenly exclaims, "Oh." When Tiara Rose asks what's wrong, Philin points out that Tiara Rose just used a nickname when she used to call him Prince Aquasteed. Philin smiles brightly, saying she is very happy for her and is looking forward to their future together. Philin then observes that Tiara Rose seems even more fidgety than usual. She says she first thought it was just lingering memories from the date, but now she suspects more. She asks directly, "He proposed, right?" Tiara Rose flinches, confirming Philin's suspicion. Philin smiles, stating that this must be why Tiara Rose is so anxiously waiting for her father, the master, to return. Tiara Rose realizes Philin knew, and Philin confirms it, of course. Right on cue, Philin looks out the window and spots a carriage, announcing that it looks like the master has arrived. Tiara Rose dashes to the window, sees it is true, and thinks he is finally home. She runs from the room, calling out, "Father." She finds him in the hall, fidgeting nervously. Her father greets her, "I'm home, Tiara," and asks why she is in such a rush. She tries to deny it, but he smiles, saying he knows his daughter and that this must be about Prince Aquasteed. Tiara Rose quietly confirms, "Yes." She then asks, "So, I can accept it?" Looking at him hopefully, she adds, "Please, father." Her father looks at her bright, smiling face and thinks to himself that while it will be lonely when she leaves, nothing is more important than her smile. Elsewhere, Prince Heartknights is shown, having done something he feels cannot be undone. He thinks that he wants Tiara to be happy, but he says her name with regret. He recalls his time with her, like escorting her to a party, but admits there was nothing romantic about it. He thinks he should have been more focused on Tiara. Now, Tiara's face won't leave his mind, even though he is supposed to love Akari. 1 year ago, showing Prince Aquasteed in the academy library. Other students observe him, noting he is there again and remarking on how serious he is. They whisper about how he has been traveling between countries for years to study and has transferred to their academy to spend his last year of school. Prince Aquasteed himself is engrossed in a book, flipping a page as he thinks about how the history lessons on craftwork are very interesting. He also notes that the library contains many great books related to that topic. While reading, Prince Aquasteed looks up and glances out the window, where he sees a young woman having tea with her maid. He recognizes her as the daughter of Marquis Clementil, the one who was granted the name of Lapis. After a moment, he looks back down at his book, flipping another page and thinking to himself that she seems quite ordinary. Several days later, Tiara Rose is seen outside the library window again, reading a book with her maid. Prince Aquasteed's attendant, Elliot, notices them from inside and points out to the prince that they have come again. Elliot reflects that he didn't think much about it at first, although it is unusual for a lady to come there to read books. Elliot's thoughts continue as Tiara Rose is shown reading, sometimes blushing at her book. He admits that as she came to read almost every day, he began to think about her often. Eventually, Elliot found himself looking for her, while Prince Aquasteed is seen smiling as he watches her from the window. Elliot then turns to his master, saying, "Prince Aquasteed." He warns the prince not to think of such absurd things, reminding him that Lady Tiara Rose is engaged to Prince Heartknights. Prince Aquasteed looks away, merely replying, I know that, but... Elliot thinks about his prince, recalling that he has only ever seen him politely reject the beautiful ladies who approach him. Elliot sadly wishes this love could be returned but concludes that there is nothing he can do. The next day, Prince Aquasteed is at the window again, this time watching the rain pitter-patter outside. He sees Tiara Rose and her maid outside reading and remarks that it's a pity, as she seemed to be enjoying her book so much. He muses that the rain shouldn't last for too long, but then he suddenly reaches his hand out of the window. This alarms Elliot, who calls out his name. The rain begins to pour, and Tiara Rose and her maid are shown huddling together as it patters down. Prince Aquasteed worries that her book will get wet if he doesn't do something, and he reasons that since he can't make direct contact, this one act will surely be alright. Suddenly, a magical rainbow appears over Tiara Rose, causing her and her maid to look up with bright, surprised smiles. From the window, Prince Aquasteed glances at their happy reaction and thinks that he is glad he did it. He feels that since he is unable to make direct contact, he should be allowed this one small happiness. A note explains that magic exists in this world, and Prince Aquasteed possesses immense magical power. He is also a skilled swordsman who acts as a magic warrior, though Elliot notes he rarely uses his magic, preferring the sword. At this time, Tiara Rose was just a girl he watched from his window, and they had only spoken once at an evening party. Elliot sadly mutters that he wishes they could be together. As Tiara Rose and her maid cheer happily at the rainbow, Prince Aquasteed watches them with a gentle smile. Elliot, however, looks on with a pained expression, wondering why fate must be so cruel. The story then jumps forward 1 year, to the time after the graduation party. Elliot asks Prince Aquasteed if he has finished writing the letter. Prince Aquasteed confirms he has and hands the sealed letter to Elliot, instructing him to send it to His Majesty. Elliot takes the letter, saying, "Understood." A magical bird is then shown flying through the clouds to deliver the message. As they watch the bird fly away, Elliot thinks that the kingdom should be fine now. The letter detailed the prince's intention to bring Tiara Rose back to Marine Forest as his betrothed, along with all the necessary preparations. Prince Aquasteed thinks to himself that he is going to marry a lady of Lapis. He also included in the letter the most favorable transaction for Lapis Lazuli and resolved that the rooms and furniture must be perfect, ensuring Tiara Rose can live in Marine Forest without any inconvenience. Elliot smiles, remarking that the prince sure moves quickly, and he feels stupid for having worried at all. Prince Aquasteed admits he is surprised at himself but says he really did think the graduation party was his only chance, remembering how Tiara Rose was shaking slightly. Prince Aquasteed's expression hardens as he recalls the party, thinking about how he could allow the woman he loved to stand there alone. He remembers taking her hand and thinks that it's all right now. He then hands Elliot another letter, this one the formal engagement request, and instructs him to have it delivered to Marquis Clementil first thing in the morning. Elliot again says, "Understood." The prince thinks that there isn't much time before he must return to his country, but more than anything he just wants her by his side as soon as possible. His wish was granted. The morning after their date, Marquis Clementil responded with his consent. Later, Tiara Rose and Philin are in a waiting room, and Tiara Rose explains she came to see Prince Aqua. A maid says she will let him know and asks her to wait. Tiara Rose worries that she came too suddenly, but Philin reassures her that her father sent word ahead. Philin adds that they would have been told immediately if he couldn't see her, so there is clearly no problem. Tiara Rose agrees but admits she is very nervous because this is their first meeting since she agreed to marry him. Tiara Rose wonders if she will really be able to see him. Just then, there are 3 knocks at the door, and a maid announces that Prince Aquasteed's attendant has arrived. Elliot enters, apologizing for the wait. He informs her that a room has been prepared and the prince will be there soon, asking her to follow him. As they walk, Tiara Rose apologizes for intruding. Elliot introduces himself and smiles, telling her not to apologize because Prince Aquasteed was so happy that she came. Tiara Rose thinks to herself that she is glad Elliot seems so nice. Elliot makes conversation, praising Lapis Lazuli as a wonderful country with especially beautiful ornaments. Tiara Rose, thinking he seems warm and kind, replies that he is too kind and that their craftsmen work hard. Elliot then describes Marine Forest as being filled with treasures from the sea like coral and pearls, calling it every girl's dream. He adds that Prince Aquasteed will be delighted. Just as he speaks, a voice suddenly shouts, "Tiara!" Tiara Rose and Philin both turn in shock. They see Prince Heartknight standing in the hallway, and Tiara Rose says his name in disbelief. Prince Aquasteed in his office holding a document. He thinks about how Tiara Rose accepted the engagement and how he desires to see her as soon as possible. Following 3 knocks, he grants entry, and Marquis Clementil, Tiara Rose's father, enters, apologizing for the sudden visit. Prince Aquistide assures him he is always welcome. The Marquis explains that his daughter wishes to come and meet the prince today, and Prince Aquistide immediately agrees, saying he is very much looking forward to it. The prince then thanks the Marquis for agreeing to the engagement, and the Marquis replies that he has already prepared everything, so there is no need to worry. As the Marquis excuses himself, Prince Aquistide reflects that he didn't expect the Marquis to arrange things so far in advance. Once in the hall, the Marquis smiles, thinking that this level of preparation must mean Prince Aquistide has already laid the groundwork with both King Alexander and Marine Forest. He sees this as proof of how much the prince loves his precious daughter. He muses that while the situation with Prince Heartknights was unfortunate, he will only let Tiara marry someone strong and truly in love with her, and it seems he no longer needs to worry about that. Back in his office, Prince Aquistide waits, noting that Tiara Rose is taking far too long. He thinks about how he asked Elliot to deliver some documents and that Elliot, who is skilled with both sword and magic, is guiding her. He knows the castle should be safe, but he still worries. The scene then shifts to the hallway, where Tiara Rose and Philin have indeed run into Prince Heartknights, and Tiara Rose wonders why he is there. Prince Heartknights clenches his fist and acknowledges that she must be there to see Prince Aquistide, which Tiara Rose confirms. He then shocks her by bowing deeply and apologizing for his actions at the graduation party. Tiara Rose, flustered, tells him to raise his head, reminding him that royalty should not bow so easily. He remarks that she has always been the one to correct him. Tiara Rose is privately happy, thinking that the character she liked in her past life is now able to think for himself and redeem himself, though she suspects the king must have scolded him severely. Her relief is short-lived as Prince Heartknights suddenly grabs her arm, his voice sounding disturbingly sweet. Tiara Rose is disgusted by his emotion and tells him to stop. Just then, a hand lands on Heartknights' shoulder. Prince Aquistide has arrived, and he angrily asks Prince Heartknights what he is trying to do to his precious fiancée. Tiara Rose's fear vanishes instantly, and she calls out to Prince Aqua, her heart soaring at hearing him call her his precious fiancée. Prince Aquistide pulls her into his arms, kissing her head and apologizing for being late. He glares at Heartknights, thinking about how he treated her so horribly and is still gracelessly trying to attach himself to her. He vows to protect her. He firmly tells Heartknights that Tiara is his fiancée and not to touch her. Heartknights, stunned, apologizes, saying he didn't realize the engagement was official so quickly. Prince Aquistide says he will forgive him this time, as long as he understands. He then gently leads Tiara Rose away, telling her that tea and sweets are prepared just the way she likes them. As they walk away with Elliot and a fist-pumping Philin, Prince Heartknights is left alone in the hall. In the drawing room, Tiara Rose apologizes for the sudden visit, but Aquistide reassures her it's fine. She is so nervous that she begins to excitedly ramble about her love for strawberries, the specialty of her country, and her desire to make new cakes, cookies, and puddings with them now that her past life memories have returned. She quickly apologizes for getting carried away, but Aquistide just smiles, glad she likes them, and reveals the strawberries on the table are ones he had sent from his home. Tiara Rose takes a bite of cake, declaring it delicious. She then tries to talk about the incident earlier, but Prince Aquistide gently silences her with a no. He asks why he shouldn't protect her, stating, "I'm your fiancée, Tiara." Hearing him say it directly makes her heart thump wildly, and she feels embarrassed. He holds her hand, thanking her for choosing him. Tiara Rose replies that she is the one who is grateful, and holding his hand, she feels completely safe. Prince Aquistide then formally introduces Elliot, explaining he is the only servant he brought, but he is highly skilled in combat and politics. Tiara Rose, in turn, introduces Philin, explaining they were raised together and she is like an older sister to her. Tiara Rose worries about taking the 18-year-old Philin so far away, but Philin firmly states she intends to serve Tiara Rose always. Tiara Rose is moved and vows to protect her. Prince Aquistide, relieved Tiara Rose has a good maid, asks Elliot to give Philin some advice for the upcoming trip. As their attendants step aside, Prince Aquistide asks Tiara Rose for some time alone and calls her over. He gently cups her face, thinking how lovely she is and how he wants to give her more attention. Tiara Rose's heart thumps at his closeness. He thanks her for accepting his proposal and says that while he knows he's been forceful, he wants to propose again directly, without formalities. He declares, "Lady Tiara Rose Lapis Clementil, I love you with all my heart. May I, Aquasteed Marine Forest, ask you to be my wife?" With tears in her eyes, Tiaros accepts. Overjoyed, Prince Aquasteed pulls her into a tight embrace, apologizing and saying he is just so happy. He whispers, "I love you, Tiara," and gently kisses her. Tiaros thinks about the joy of being kissed and held by the one she loves. He kisses her again and again, as she thinks he only meant to do it once but is now doing a little more. After several more kisses, Tiaros feels weak. He finally holds her, and after licking his lips, he whispers he couldn't stop because she was too cute. Tiaros is so embarrassed she thinks she might die, but she is also incredibly happy. Suddenly, a commotion is heard. Knights rush into the room, shouting about magic and how they've never seen such a thing. Prince Aquasteed pulls Tiaros behind him as she wonders if they are enemies. Tiaros then looks on in shock, recognizing the light as the heroine's magic, holy prayer. A commentary on the popular game, The Ring of Lapis Lazuli, which features a heroine who starts as a commoner. This heroine, Akari, is adopted by a margrave and travels to the royal capital, where she is fated to fall in love and have her first encounter with Prince Heartknights. Akari is shown arriving in a carriage, smiling as she peeks out the window. At the same time, a 14-year-old Prince Heartknights is sneaking into town. According to the game's first step, the heroine is supposed to get lost and then ask Heartknights for directions, recognizing him as a fellow student. However, as Akari walks, she gasps, sensing something is wrong, and shouts for someone to watch out. A sign suddenly thuds to the ground, and she mutters in confusion, relieved after seeing the fallen sign. Prince Heartknights rushes to her, asking if she is all right and noting it was a close call. Akari, with tears in her eyes, confesses she was very frightened, which makes the prince's heart beat. He tells her he is glad she isn't hurt, but Akari then notices his arm is injured. He tries to dismiss it as just a small scratch. Akari, however, looks very sad and insists on seeing his arm, grabbing it. Heartknights, surprised, asks her not to look so sad, muttering that he's fine and didn't mean to hurt her. As Akari holds his arm, a drip of light appears, and the scratch on his arm vanishes. Prince Heartknights is impressed that she can use healing magic and thanks her. As he starts to introduce himself, Akari explains that while they haven't formally met, she has seen his face before. She introduces herself as Akari Tetalite. Heartknights recognizes the family name and smiles, saying he is glad to have met her, to which she agrees. A note clarifies that their meeting was originally supposed to happen at the academy the following day. Heartknight says he has no time to talk then but hopes they can speak more another time. Akari bows, says goodbye, and thanks him for giving her directions. As she walks away, Heartknight smirks, puzzled because he never actually gave her any directions. Later, the game's second step begins as Akari transfers to the academy and is introduced to her new class. During recess, she excitedly runs up to Prince Heartknights, exclaiming how happy she is to meet him again and admitting she was so excited she could barely sleep. Heartknights is surprised by her honesty, noting she is very cheerful and unlike most ladies, who would act more gracefully. Finding her genuine and cute, he offers to give her a tour of the school. Akari is thrilled and immediately accepts, pulling him by the arm to go, which triggers the school tour event. As they chatter and walk closely together, other students gossip, noting that a lady normally would not pull on the arm of a man who is betrothed to another. They wonder if the prince will tell Akari about his fiancée, Lady Tiaros. Tiaros's friends ask her if she is all right. Tiaros calmly responds that while she is his fiancée, this is the academy, and Lady Akari is new and must be anxious. Her friends call her too kind, but Tiaros decides she will speak to Prince Heartknights about it later, as she doesn't want to embarrass the crown prince in public. She feels a sting of jealousy and reflects that she and Heartknights have never linked arms outside of formal balls. As Akari points to where she wants to go next, Heartknights thinks to himself that he is enjoying the fun, casual conversation, which is a relief from his usual royal pressures. An extra chapter shows Prince Heartknights brooding in bed, tossing and turning as he regrets not being more attentive to Tiara. He stays up all night thinking, and when his servant arrives in the morning, he gloomily looks at the bright sun. Another extra reveals Akari's situation. She is confined to a room and bored because Prince Heartknights isn't there. She is shocked to see she is barely in the story's second volume and tries to practice magic out of boredom. A third extra details Tiaros's preparations for her date, as she wonders what sweets to bring. She considers baking a cake but doesn't know the exact date. After agonizing over her many recipes, she decides cookies will work because he can also take them home. That same night, Prince Aquastide returns to his room after his balcony visit with Tiaros. Elliot welcomes him back and asks if he plans to take his jacket off. The prince says, "Not yet," and sits down, closing his eyes to enjoy the lingering scent of Lady Tiaros on his clothes. A final extra shows Prince Aquastide at his desk, so happy that Tiara is coming to visit him. He immediately begins writing, wanting to meet her soon. He instructs Elliot to prepare a tea party in the garden with pink and yellow roses, colors he thinks would suit her. When Tiaros arrives, she is wowed by the beautiful rose garden and the delicious-looking sweets. Prince Aquastide serves her himself, telling her to pick whichever she likes, which makes Tiaros so happy she's scared. In the midst of the light, Prince Aquastide is shown firmly squeezing Tiaros' hand while he smiles to comfort her, promising that he will protect her. Another view shows Prince Aquastide embracing Tiaros as she sits on a bench surrounded by beautiful roses. Tiaros then has a flashback, remembering a lesson about the holy prayer. The flashback takes us to a classroom where a teacher explains this unique magic. The teacher describes the holy prayer as the rarest magic, a prayer from a pure maiden that can only be used by one person at a time. This incredible magic also possesses the power to purify. Simply having this gift affects the entire country, protecting all of its people from any harm. A student in the class raises his hand and asks what would happen when the magic user died. The teacher explains that it is said the user would be reborn, although nobody knows where or who it would be. Whenever someone who can use this magic is born within the country, they are given the special title of Lapis. Back in the present, Tiaros recalls that this special person was the heroine of the game, The Ring of Lapis Lazuli. She had assumed that Lady Akari had not used it before. According to the original game story, the heroine was supposed to awaken this power right after the conviction event, so Tiaros is confused about why it is happening now. She looks shocked and worries that her own existence in this world has somehow changed the timing of this crucial event. As the bright light finally fades, a man named Elliot says it appears so and runs off, telling Prince Aquastide to please wait there while he goes to check on things. He also asks Tiaros to wait with his highness. Prince Aquastide, standing near a castle, again tells Tiara not to worry. He reassures her that Elliot will return soon with news, but Tiaros is worried. She knows the holy prayer's power is something that every kingdom desires. Tiaros' thoughts spiral as she considers the political problems this will cause. The kingdom of Lapis Lazuli would definitely want this power, and the kingdom of Marine Forest would also be desperate to have it. She remembers that magic users often ended up marrying into the royal family of the kingdom they lived in. She becomes distressed, shaking as she wonders if things are still going according to the game's story and if they are nearing the end. She tries to dismiss the awful thought that Prince Aqua might want the heroine's power for himself. A chill runs through Tiaros as she has a terrible realization. This could mean they are moving towards the game's sequel. Prince Aquastide notices her distress and gently pats her head, telling her again that it's fine and there is no need for her to worry. Sometime later, Tiaros' attendant, Philin, serves them tea. Philin smiles and mentions that she made the tea a little sweeter than usual. Tiaros smiles and thanks Philin for the tea. After some time passes, a knight arrives, saluting the prince and excusing himself to deliver a report. The knight reports that the light was apparently just from a malfunctioning magic device. He continues that currently, no problems have arisen. However, he thinks it is advisable for Lady Tiaros to return home until all the devices have been fully inspected. Prince Aquastide listens and thoughtfully replies that he sees and understands very well. The prince then instructs Philin to please prepare the carriage, and Philin responds, "Certainly." Philin sighs with relief, saying she is glad it was just a magic device and nothing serious. Prince Aquastide turns to Tiara and tells her she should return to the mansion, adding that he will go with her. Tiaros looks deeply saddened, thinking to herself that she must accept the official report about a malfunctioning magic device. She feels frustrated that she doesn't know anything and wishes she could witness what happens next, but she knows she cannot say something like that out loud. She wonders if the king made the decision for this cover-up, or if it was an order from the holy prayer user herself. Still, she holds on to the hope that Prince Aqua will not choose the heroine. Meanwhile, Prince Aquastide is in his office, thinking that Elliot is late. He notes that the castle is calm now and most of the staff have returned to their duties. He knows that Elliot is extremely well suited to intelligence work and would normally be here by now. Because Elliot has not returned yet, Aquastide concludes there is only one possibility. The previous report about the malfunction was a complete lie. Leaning back in his chair, Aquastide suspects that something big has happened. He feels frustrated because he doesn't know for sure and he cannot go around the castle investigating himself. He knows this isn't like the confrontation at the graduation party and that King Alexander will surely handle whatever happened very harshly. He decides he will just have to wait. While waiting, he finishes a large stack of documents, noting that some of it was for tomorrow, but he ended up finishing it all. He smiles and thinks about Tiara Rose, remembering their kisses and feeling he deserves credit for holding himself back as much as he did. He feels happy just thinking about how they will be together from now on. His thoughts are interrupted by 3 knocks at the door. A maid enters the room and says she has brought him dinner. Aquastide, who is tapping his fingers on his desk, tells her to enter and that she may serve it. The maid replies, "Certainly," as the scene shows the castle under a dark night sky. As Aquastide sips a drink, there is more knocking before the door bursts open. Elliot stumbles in, panting and looking very tired. He announces, "I've returned, Your Highness." Aquastide calmly says, "You're late. What happened?" Elliot delivers his shocking report. It's most surprising, but Lady Akari, who accompanied Prince Heartknights during the party, the holy prayer has awakened within her. Prince Aquastide is visibly stunned as an image of Lady Akari and Prince Heartknights appears. He quietly processes the news, thinking that the last holy prayer user died several years ago, so it would not be strange for a new one to appear. He sighs, realizing this is quite troublesome, especially for it to be Lady Akari of all people. He thinks about the maiden who can use the holy prayer and makes a firm decision. "I want her." Elliot adds that King Alexander is not likely to let her go and will indeed likely have her marry Prince Heartknights. The fact that they were told by report that it was just a malfunction proves the king must intend to keep it a secret for a while. Elliot says the fact that it took him so long to acquire the information is proof enough of this secrecy. Aquastide comments that while the king apologized for Prince Heartknight's actions at the graduation party, this is different. It has already been declared that he will not be king and that Sirius, the second prince, would be the heir. Now, they will probably be set up to support him, or at worst, the king could cut him off entirely. Aquastide repeats that this is truly troublesome. Elliot, bowing, states that King Alexander will act much more carefully now that he is with the holy prayer user and that he doubts the king would give her up even if it meant war. Aquastide acknowledges the great benefits to having someone who can wield that power, as the country is guaranteed peace. He thinks that with the holy prayer, his own country would thrive even more. He tells Elliot he will do as he commands and considers that he could use his own power to intervene. 10 days pass. Tiara Rose is at her mansion, as she hasn't returned to the castle since that night. No word has reached her about Lady Akari's awakening. She is aware that the royal family is keeping it a secret. Prince Aqua visits her every other day, but he has never mentioned it either. Tiara Rose wonders if he doesn't know about it, or perhaps if he knows but is hiding it from her. She feels frustrated because she cannot exactly ask about it. She is sure her father is aware of the situation, but she cannot explain to him how she knows about it. Philin approaches Lady Tiara Rose and announces that she has finished preparing for her marriage training. Tiara Rose, sitting on a sofa, thanks her and says they are now ready to travel to Marine Forest. Her father had previously said they would discuss her future when she returned after a year of training. Philin is excited, saying that since it's been decided she will be going as well, she intends to serve Lady Tiara Rose forever. Tiara Rose then asks when they will be leaving and wonders if it isn't about time for Prince Aquastide to return to his country. Philin replies that Prince Aqua was originally supposed to stay for just 1 year for his studies, but she thinks it might be difficult for him to leave before the matter regarding Lady Akari is settled. She points out that it's not good to have royals from 2 kingdoms close to Lady Akari, especially since both kingdoms will want the holy prayer's power for their own. Tiara Rose is left frustrated, knowing that all she can do is wait for Prince Aqua to contact her, and she anxiously prays for the matter to be resolved quickly. Several days went by at the mansion, and Tiara Rose received a letter from Prince Aqua, which was delivered in an envelope, stating that he would be visiting her again. She sits by the window holding the letter and sighs, feeling relieved that things finally seem to be settled. She is also glad because she has not heard any bad news from her father. With his visit confirmed, she decides she must prepare to receive the prince. This begins the 10th chapter of the story. Tiara Rose is in the kitchen, happily presenting a tray full of desserts she has made, including a large, beautifully decorated cake and several small fruit tarts. Birds can be heard chirping outside the window as she brightly tells Philin that the desserts are ready. She asks for Philin's opinion, saying she thinks they turned out pretty well. Philin smiles and agrees, exclaiming that they look very delicious. Tiara Rose is glad and asks Philin if she can have them sent up to her room, to which Philin cheerfully replies, certainly. Tiara Rose thinks about the tarts, remembering that she loved these desserts in her past life and used to eat them all the time. She imagines herself sitting with Prince Aquasteed, holding a tart and hoping that he likes them. She smiles as she thinks about how she even topped them with strawberries and simply cannot wait to see his reaction. She takes a small bite of one of the tarts herself and smiles, feeling confident that there is no need to worry because they are so delicious. She is sure he will definitely like them. Later, a servant enters her room and informs Lady Tiara Rose that Prince Aquasteed's carriage has just arrived. Philin asks Tiara Rose if she is sure she won't meet him in the drawing room. Tiara Rose, looking out her window, says yes, explaining that since she will be leaving soon, she has started to miss her room. She thinks about how she has so many fond memories of tea parties with her friends there. Philin comments that it is unfortunate that it's cloudy today, as she could have had tea on the terrace if the weather had permitted it. Tiara Rose just smiles, saying she doesn't mind because she is so happy. Outside, Prince Aquasteed exits his carriage while his attendant Elliot stands by. From her window, Tiara Rose peeks out to watch him arrive and looks flustered as a sound effect like a crackle is seen. When Prince Aquasteed enters her room, he immediately embraces a surprised Tiara Rose. He apologizes for not visiting recently, explaining that his hands were full making various preparations. Tiara Rose, still in his arms, tells him not to worry about it. Philin quietly shuffles out of the room and closes the door behind her. Tiara Rose then gestures for the prince to come further into the room. Prince Aquasteed hugs her again from behind, apologizing for keeping her waiting. He adds that at least he was able to finish everything. Tiara Rose, with her face held gently in his hand, starts to say she is fine, but he interrupts her by saying he wanted to see her and gives her a deep kiss. This is followed by several more tender kisses. He smiles at her and says, "You look very cute today, Tiara." Tiara Rose becomes very embarrassed and blushes deeply. Prince Aquasteed comments that she is just too adorable and, squeezing her hand, he asks if he may kiss her again. Prince Aquasteed gently pats her and pulls her into a smooth hug. Tiara Rose panics internally, thinking that she is far too embarrassed to say yes. Her heart is pounding loudly, and she wonders what she should do, fretting about what you are supposed to do in these situations. It has not even been that long since her first kiss. She confirms to herself that it's not that she doesn't like it, she just doesn't know how to answer him. Prince Aquasteed takes her hesitation as an answer and leans in to kiss her again. Her heart continues to pound as he whispers her name, Tiara, and kisses her forehead. He then moves to kiss her on the lips again, causing her to flinch in surprise. Tiara Rose squeezes the fabric of his clothes, and as her heart pounds, she thinks to herself that it is embarrassing, but she likes it. She slowly closes her eyes, noticing how long his eyelashes are. The kiss makes her feel wobbly, and she is so embarrassed that she feels like she is in someone else's body. Prince Aquasteed just chuckles and then sits down on the sofa, pulling a flustered Tiara Rose right into his lap. He smiles and tells her to let him be close to her for a little longer. Tiara Rose is still overwhelmed, her face is hot and her heart is hammering. As he smoothly touches her face, his expression turns serious, and he tells her that the engagement has been decided. Tiara Rose looks at him, completely confused. Prince Aquasteed clarifies that it is Lady Akari's engagement. He adds that he knows it is not exactly something she would want to hear about. Tiara Rose's heart thumps in her chest as she fearfully asks, "With whom?" Tiara Rose's mind immediately goes to a dark place, and she is pictured sitting alone in darkness. She remembers that Prince Aqua is a capture target in the game's sequel. She thinks that if he were to be engaged to Lady Akari, it would not be strange at all. In fact, she worries that it would also not be strange if he had worked hard for that engagement to happen. She inwardly pleads, "Please don't take Prince Aqua away from me." Prince Aquasteed notices her anxiety and gently squeezes her hands as she shakes. He tells her he can see she is anxious and suggests that maybe they should not talk about it, so she does not have to hear it. Tiara Rose looks up, confused, wondering why he is acting this way and asking if Lady Akari had not hurt her deeply as well. Tiara Rose composes herself, clasping her hands together. She looks at him and insists that she is fine and asks him to please tell her. Prince Aquasteed looks at her seriously and says, "Very well." He agrees to tell her since she wants him to, but he warns her that it must remain a secret. Tiara Rose simply replies, "Okay." He pulls Tiara Rose close so she can rest against his chest, and he gently caresses her hair. He tells her to let him know if she feels uncomfortable as he speaks. He then reveals the news, referring to Lady Akari as the woman who treated you like a villain. He tells Tiaros that she is to be engaged to Prince Heartknights, as a vision of Akari and Heartknights appears. Tiaros sighs deeply, a blush of relief spreading across her face. Prince Aquasteed looks at her, confused by her reaction. Tiaros apologizes, explaining that she was just so relieved. She clarifies her thoughts, saying she is relieved because this means Lady Akari will not be engaged to Prince Aqua. She confesses that she had thought he was the one who was to be engaged to Lady Akari, and she was very afraid. Prince Aquasteed holds her and thinks to himself what an adorable thing for her to be worried about, wondering what made her think that. He apologizes for causing her to worry and firmly promises her, "I would never choose someone over you, Tira." He tells her that she does not have to cry anymore. Tiaros is surprised as large tears begin to drip from her eyes, and she insists, "I'm not crying." Prince Aquasteed looks at her intensely and tells her, "I'm taking you with me to Marine Forest." Tiaros, with tears in her eyes, asks him, "Will you stay by my side forever?" She then answers her own question, crying and smiling as she says, "Yes. Of course, Prince Aqua." He leans in and kisses her, and they look at each other, blushing happily. The scene then cuts back to them at the tea table, where Tiaros apologizes for the interruption and asks him to please continue. Prince Aquasteed confirms that King Alexander has informed her that Prince Heartknights is no longer heir to the throne. This means the second son, Prince Sirius Lapis Lazuli Lactamuth, will now be the heir. He explains that Prince Sirius was officially engaged to Lady Charlotte Lapis Antiarch yesterday. They are both still young, the prince is 7 and Charlotte is 12. While the age gap between them is less than desirable, they need the backing of a Lapis in order to make him the heir. The plan is that Prince Sirius will one day be king, and he will be assisted by Prince Heartknights and Lady Akari, who can invoke the Holy Prayer. This arrangement will ensure the country runs smoothly. Tiaros looks off to the side, wondering to herself if everything truly resolved so neatly. After explaining this, he told her what would happen next. He is going home on the 10th, and when he does, she will come with him to receive her marriage training. Elsewhere, Philin is seen looking at a schedule, planning the next steps with the master so they do not have to worry about every little detail. Tiaros smiles, feeling an immense sense of relief. She is so glad that Prince Aqua did not get engaged to the heroine. Later, while drinking tea, she reflects on the situation. She thinks that while the conviction event certainly hurt, it is ultimately only a scenario from a game, and she can finally look at it that way now. She knows this is all because Prince Aqua treats her so well. She smiles, feeling sure that she will sleep well tonight. That night, while Tiaros is fast asleep in her bed, a bright light shines in her room. Lady Akari suddenly appears and says, "Oh, good evening." Tiaros sits up in her bed, confused. Lady Akari smiles and comments on how she arrived, noting how useful it is that she can teleport with this magic. Tiaros can only stare in shock, saying, "Lady Akari?" The chapter ends on this cliffhanger. Tiaros in her room, wondering why Lady Akari is there. She is confused because she believed Lady Akari was supposed to be confined to the castle and kept under guard. Lady Akari stands before her, smiling brightly, and says that after giving it a lot of thought, she has a question for Lady Tiara. Tiaros silently wonders what Akari intends to do. Akari then asks Tiaros if she has also played this game before. Tiaros is stunned, as this confirms her suspicion that Lady Akari is reincarnated, just like her. Lady Akari explains her reasoning, showing visions of Prince Heartknights, older brother Mowgli's, Lord Cliff, and even an instructor. She states that every single one of them followed the game's original storyline, and Lady Tiara was the only person who acted differently from the game. Akari complains that she did not get her happy ending. As Tiaros listens, she understands that Akari has concluded she must also be a reincarnated person because she changed the game's ending. Tiaros privately thinks Akari is mistaken and has no solid evidence, especially since Tiaros' own candy pink hair and clear blue eyes look just like a game character's. Tiaros decides to feign ignorance and politely tells Lady Akari that she is afraid she doesn't understand what she is saying. Akari says it is all right for Tiaros to pretend and laments that while she will finally marry Prince Heartknights and find happiness, she was so surprised when Prince Aqua, her true favorite character, appeared. Tiaros guesses that Akari has come to tell her to break up with Prince Aqua. Akari explains that since Prince Aqua was from the sequel, she thought she had to make do with Prince Heartknights, who was only her second favorite. She exclaims that if she had known Prince Aqua was an option, he would have been her ideal choice. Akari then smiles, glad that Tiara Rose fell for her trick and confirmed her suspicions. She realizes that Tiara Rose must not know anything about the sequel, such as Prince Aqua's events or the heroine in Marine Forest. Tiara Rose is confused, so Akari explains that she was reincarnated and has memories of playing this game when she was Japanese. Akari then presses Tiara Rose, asking if she was also Japanese in her past life. Akari follows up, asking if Tiara Rose died without ever playing the sequel. Tiara Rose quietly admits, "That's right." Akari is completely horrified, covering her mouth and muttering, "Unbelievable." Tiara Rose, now annoyed, tells her to just leave it. Tiara Rose closes her eyes, thinking that now, more than ever, she truly wishes she had played the sequel. She imagines all the beautiful CGs and heart-throbbing events she must have missed, especially collecting all of Prince Aqua's CGs. Suddenly, Akari grabs her hand. Tiara Rose is shocked as Akari bursts into comical sobs. Akari grabs Tiara Rose and shakes her, crying about how pitiful it is that Lady Tiara never played the sequel. She insists there is no other Otome game as wonderful as this one, declaring that while Prince Heart Knights is dreamy, Prince Aqua is way dreamier. She excitedly explains that the sequel's heroine is a duke's daughter in Marine Forest named Aishira. She describes a so-romantic CG scene where Prince Aqua meets Aishira by the sea after getting fed up with his fiancée. Akari then complains that Tiara Rose has a stable life, unlike her, who had to rise from being a commoner, and wishes she had been reincarnated as the sequel's heroine, leaving Tiara Rose looking exhausted. Tiara Rose pushes Akari away and asks why she really came here, while privately thinking she still wants to know more about the sequel heroine, Aishira. Akari's demeanor changes completely. She reminds Tiara Rose that it has been decided she will be engaged to Prince Heart Knights, which Tiara Rose confirms she knows. Akari then smiles and reveals her trump card. She can use the power of the Holy Prayer. She asks if Tiara Rose understands the significance of this power, confidently stating that if she informs her beloved Prince Aqua of this, she can marry him without any problems. Tiara Rose gasps in shock. Tiara Rose's mind races, realizing Prince Aqua probably already knows about Akari's power. She reflects on her earlier conversation with him, recalling that he only said an engagement between Akari and Heart Knights was decided and that Heart Knights was no longer the heir. He never mentioned why Akari was made his fiancée. She wonders if he was just being considerate, or if he truly doesn't know. Akari then demands that Tiara Rose break up with Prince Aqua. She argues it should be easy since Tiara Rose never played the sequel and has no emotional attachment to him, unlike Akari, who has played his route countless times. Tiara Rose clenches her fist, angrily telling Akari she is being ridiculous. She declares that Prince Aqua is not a game character but a living, breathing human being, and that Akari is ignoring his wishes. Akari just scoffs, saying, "Obviously I get that." Tiara Rose is left speechless as Akari continues, saying Prince Aqua is royalty and she bears the Holy Prayer's power. She claims it is common sense in this world for them to marry and that the crown prince will certainly decide he must have her. Tiara Rose thinks that while that might be true, she has no intention of backing down. She counters by asking if Akari isn't already engaged to Prince Heart Knights. Akari dismisses this, saying the king decided it arbitrarily and she has not agreed to it. She reveals her plan to inform Prince Aqua of her power, receive his protection, travel to Marine Forest with him, and then get married. Tiara Rose thinks it wouldn't be easy to escape, but Akari ignores the complications and reaches out her hand. Suddenly, Akari attacks Tiara Rose with a slice of magic, causing her to cry out. A jolt of energy crackles and paralyzes Tiara Rose. She tries to stop it but finds her own power won't come. She realizes it is futile to use defensive magic because the disparity in their power is just too vast. Akari smiles as Tiara Rose cries out, explaining her new scenario where Lady Tiara is injured and her engagement is broken. Akari gathers crackling energy in her hand, declaring that she is the heroine and is bound to get her happy ending. Tiara Rose knows she cannot turn her back. Akari tells her not to worry, as she will merely fall into a months-long coma, for the sake of her and Prince Aqua's happiness. She asks Tiara Rose to cooperate and then unleashes her attack, shouting, "Lightning, strike forth!" Tiara Rose screams, but the attack is stopped by a magical barrier that suddenly appears. Tiara Rose is stunned, knowing a barrier that strong is beyond her own power, and she wonders who saved her. Prince Aquasteed is suddenly behind her, pulling her into a protective embrace. He says, "It seems like I made it in time. Tiara Rose is overcome with relief, crying out his name. In the doorway, her father, the Marquis, and Elliot have also arrived. Aquastide holds Tiara Rose's face, apologizing for not making it in time as he sees she is hurt. Tiara Rose cries, telling him not to look so sad and insisting that she would have been gravely injured if he hadn't saved her. Aquastide clenches his fist, angry that she was hurt at all. Akari, in the background, is shocked, wondering why he is even in the castle. The Marquis demands an explanation from Lady Akari, and Elliot explains that an excellent attendant warned him Akari had teleported into Tiara Rose's room. Akari realizes she has been caught and immediately changes her story. She pleads with Prince Aqua, announcing that the holy prayer has awakened in her but that she is being forced into an engagement with Prince Heartknights. She begs Prince Aqua to save her and take her to his kingdom. The Marquis shouts that she is speaking nonsense, but Akari tells him to shut up as she is speaking to the prince. Tiara Rose's heart pounds with fear, worried that Aquastide will choose Akari and return to his kingdom with only her. She grips his coat, thinking, "You can't." Prince Aquastide calmly strokes Tiara Rose's hair and tells Akari, "I already knew." A heavy silence fills the room. Akari, stunned, asks why he didn't make her his fiancée in that case. Aquastide, standing with Tiara Rose, states clearly that he is well aware of her power but tells her not to underestimate him. He says he does not need the holy prayer to make his kingdom flourish. He then declares, "Therefore, I do not need Lady Akari." He smiles gently at Tiara Rose, adding, "I already have Tiara," and states he has no interest in any woman other than her. Tiara Rose looks up at him, her eyes full of emotion. Akari begins to shake, muttering in disbelief that he doesn't need the power every country covets. Aquastide ignores her and kisses Tiara Rose's forehead, apologizing for being slow to rescue her. Akari collapses, devastated that she wasn't chosen. Guards rush into the room, and Aquastide orders them to seize her. They place a magic suppressor on her wrist and lead her away. Aquastide holds Tiara Rose, thinking that the cost of losing her would far outweigh any benefit from marrying Akari. He asks Tiara Rose if she has any other injuries. She leans into him, blushing, and says she is fine thanks to him, noting her cheek is just a graze. He insists on getting it treated right away. Then, he gently lifts her into a bridal carry, telling her to stay like this. He says it is all right for her to be pampered after what just happened. Tiara Rose thinks he is so kind, and though she feels embarrassed, she is also very happy. She reflects that all this time, as the villainous daughter, she was terrified of her fated banishment. She was afraid of acting selfishly and being hated by Prince Aqua. But now, her mind is finally at ease. Prince Aqua has declared he will not choose Akari, and the me that he has chosen is simply brimming over with happiness. A white tower that stands by a beautiful, vast lake in the kingdom of Lapis Lazuli. This tower was built to confine members of the aristocracy, and magic is suppressed within its walls. It is a secret place known only to a few of the kingdom's most powerful citizens. Inside, Lady Akari wonders why she is there, angrily complaining about having to stay in such a place. She sits with her chin on her hands, thinking that she should have received a much harsher punishment. She realizes her sentence was lightened because of her holy prayer and, surprisingly, because Lady Tiara requested it. A flashback shows Tiara Rose sitting on a sofa next to Prince Aquastide, with Philin standing in the background. Tiara Rose explains to her father that she fortunately did not sustain any serious injuries, and because of this, she does not wish for Akari to receive a severe punishment. Her father simply says, "If that's what you want." Tiara Rose thinks to herself that Akari is the only other person who played the Otome game, and she is grateful that Akari told her the name of the sequel's heroine. Back in the tower, Akari looks out the window, thinking she would be better off using her magic to teleport far away. She feels dejected, noting that Prince Aqua rejected her and Prince Heartknights barely seems to care about her. She wonders how things ended up this way when she is the heroine. She knows she can only use a small amount of magic because of the suppressor on her wrist. She is limited to simple things like conjuring a small light, creating a glass of water, and cooling the air. She suspects there are probably more things she can do, but she doesn't understand her powers well enough. Akari sees that the entrance is bolted with a special lock and knights are stationed everywhere to keep watch. She knows she will be noticed immediately if she tries anything and concludes it is impossible for her to escape the tower by herself. She sighs, thinking that if this were an Otome, a prince would come to her rescue. She wishes Prince Heartknights, at least, were here. Then, she has a sudden realization. This is an Otome. She looks up and sees Prince Heartknights himself entering her room. Akari smiles brightly, holding a tin of cookies, and welcomes him, offering to prepare his favorite black tea. He declines, saying he won't be staying long. Akari turns to the window, holding the tin, and says she has so much free time she doesn't know what to do, but she still wants to serve him. He just says her name, Akari. He informs her that it has already been decided that they are to marry and assist the second prince, Sirius, so she cannot object. He remarks that she agreed surprisingly meekly, as he had expected her to still be pining for Prince Aquasteed. Akari replies that since he won't be rescuing her, he should at least join her for tea. As she serves the tea, Akari admits that after Prince Aqua's rejection, everyone thinks she likes him, and it's true. She says it's the inevitable truth, even if people call her shameless. Then she tells Prince Heartknights he is mistaken about something. She looks at him and confesses, "I really like you, Prince Heartknights." He is stunned, thinking to himself that he had always believed her heart wasn't his. Akari looks puzzled by his reaction. Prince Heartknights turns away from her as a tear forms in his eye. He thinks what a self-centered girl she is to say such things despite liking Prince Aquasteed. He clenches his fist, admitting to himself that even so, he feels happy. He abruptly stands and says he is leaving. Akari is shocked, asking why he is leaving when he just got there. As he walks away from the tower, Prince Heartknights thinks that if he had stayed, who knows what he might have said. He wonders if it all turned out this way because Akari was the heroine and he was her love interest. The scene changes to the day of departure to Marine Forest. Tiara Rose is outside the mansion, saying goodbye to her parents and Philin. A carriage is waiting. Her mother tells her to take care, and her father adds that she should contact them if she needs anything. Tiara Rose smiles, telling them not to worry and that she is truly happy now. She thinks about the long 20-day journey and how they plan to rest at a town on the way. She glances at Prince Aquasteed, thinking that the next time they return, it will be in a year for their wedding reception. The Marquis bows to Prince Aquasteed, entrusting him with his daughter. Aquasteed tells him not to bow and promises to treasure Tiara Rose and make her happy, saying she already brings him so much joy. Tiara Rose blushes at his words. An attendant then announces they are ready to depart. Tiara Rose shares a tearful hug with Philin, who says she will be lonely. Tiara Rose promises to bring back gifts and thinks that it feels a little lonely, even if it's not goodbye forever. She then teases her father, noting it's the first time she has seen him cry. He sniffs and tells her to hurry up and go before it gets dark. The Marquis also wishes Philin well, who bows and promises to support Tiara Rose properly. As the carriage departs, Tiara Rose's family and the servants wave goodbye. Tiara Rose thinks her heart is racing in a way that feels different from usual. Inside the carriage, Tiara Rose feels nervous being alone with the prince. Aquasteed breaks the silence, telling her it will take 6 days to reach the border town and that the changing scenery will be beautiful. Tiara Rose says she is excited, as she has heard that Marine Forest has fairies, unlike her own kingdom. Aquasteed smiles, saying he is sure Tiara will be blessed by them. An illustration shows different kinds of fairies, and text explains that if a person is blessed, they can receive gifts like new magical powers. Tiara Rose thinks about Marine Forest, a beautiful land of seas and forests that girls dream of visiting. She reflects that she knows very little about it, as she only learned Prince Aqua was in the sequel but nothing more. As the carriage continues, she looks out the window, thinking of her parents and feeling very blessed. Prince Aquasteed gently holds her face and gives her a deep kiss. He pulls back to ask if she is all right and she smiles, saying, yes. He pulls her into a hug, telling her she is really way too cute. Tiara Rose blushes and leans against him, happily thinking, dote on me. Suddenly, a bright light flashes inside the carriage, startling them both. A letter magically appears, addressed to Lady Tiara Rose, in cute, bubbly handwriting. Tiara Rose is confused, noting this kind of magic requires great power. Prince Aquasteed immediately takes the letter, saying it looks suspicious and he needs to check it. Tiara Rose protests, worried it might be dangerous or could explode. He pats her head, telling her not to worry, and after checking it, he says it seems to be just a letter from Lady Akari. Tiara Rose is shocked, wondering if Akari still hasn't given up. The 6th day of the journey to the kingdom of Marine Forest as the carriage approaches the border. Inside, Tiara Rose peeks out the window. She thinks about the year of bridal training that lies ahead and admits to herself that it gets a little lonely being so far from home, wondering if she will be happy. She glances at Prince Aquasteed, thinking back to her past life and admiring his dreamy side profile. She blushes, acknowledging that he can capture the hearts of young ladies and has captured hers as well. Tiara Rose then reflects on her past life as a Japanese citizen who was a huge fan of the otome game, The Ring of Lapis Lazuli. She was reincarnated into the game world she loved, but as the villainous, Tiara Rose Lapis Clementille, who gets in the heroine's way. As the story went, she faced her condemnation at the graduation party, where her fiancé, the crown prince, broke off their engagement. Just as she was about to be banished, a miracle occurred. Prince Aquistide appeared and asked her to become his queen. Prince Aquistide is the crown prince of the kingdom of Marine Forest and the main capture target of the game's sequel. Tiara Rose was overjoyed, but she is also scared because she died before she could play that sequel. She knows her existence is an irregularity in this new story and worries she might be eliminated by the scenario. Her only information is that the sequel's heroine is a duke's daughter named Aishira. As she worries that Prince Aqua might be stolen from her, she lets out a small gasp. Prince Aquistide notices and asks if something is on her mind. Tiara Rose shakes her head, smiling, and says it's nothing. She tells him she is just very excited to go to Marine Forest. She thinks to herself that while she may long for home, she is happy because Prince Aqua is with her. Prince Aquistide smiles warmly, holds her hand, and tells her she says such cute things. He then tells her the border will be in sight soon, and he gently strokes her face as she looks out the window. He remarks that they will be bidding farewell to Lapis Lazuli for some time. Tiara Rose replies, yes. He then holds her face and lovingly tells her that even if she wanted to return, he doesn't think he could bring himself to send her back. Tiara Rose blushes, feeling so happy to be loved to such an extent. Tiara Rose gets excited again and asks where the fairies reside in Marine Forest. Prince Aquistide explains that they prefer places with abundant nature and describes his homeland's clear skies, vast forests, and oceans full of coral and fish. He explains that those blessed by fairies can use a fragment of their power. Tiara Rose wonders if he is loved by the sky fairies, and he confirms it, which is why wind magic is his forte. Tiara Rose says she would like to meet them soon, just as she spots the border. Prince Aquistide confirms it, explaining that the borders in this world are walls made by the magic of kings. Lapis Lazuli's wall was rebuilt by King Alexander, and the design looks different when viewed from Marine Forest. Tiara Rose is amazed, saying it looks lovely and she is excited to see it after they pass through. The carriage passes under a large gate adorned with beautiful rose designs. As they leave the gate, Tiara Rose realizes they are now in Marine Forest. The scenery changes to a road that seems to be surrounded by water, which Tiara Rose finds amazing. Prince Aquistide is glad she likes it. Tiara Rose smiles brightly, saying the day has been full of surprises. He chuckles and says he has more surprises for her, pointing out the carriage window. Tiara Rose looks and is astonished to see the sea for the first time in this world, since Lapis Lazuli only had lakes. This sea is said to be the most beautiful in the world and is home to sea fairies. Prince Aquistide suggests they stop for a break, and Tiara Rose happily agrees, saying she would love to dip her feet in the water. As her heart thumps with excitement, Tiara Rose thinks about the importance of the fairies, whose powers sustain the country. She knows they only show themselves to people they like and worries that as a future queen, she must gain their favor to support Prince Aqua. Nearby, Elliot, Aquistide's attendant, asks Tiara Rose's maid, Philin Sunfist, if she is alright. Philin thanks him for his concern. Prince Aquistide points to the water, where splashes are visible, and explains that Elliot has gained the favor of the sea fairies. Elliot crouches by the shore, and tiny, cute mermaid-like fairies swim up to him, chirping, "Welcome home." Aquistide also crouches, saying, "I'm back," as a fairy rests in his hand. Tiara Rose and Philin watch, and Tiara Rose is blown away by how adorable they are, looking like little dolls that could fit in her palm. Philin, seeing them for the first time too, smiles and suggests they try going over to them. Tiara Rose gets excited but immediately becomes nervous, worrying what she will do if they hate her. Philin reassures her that it will be fine. Tiara Rose decides she must give it a shot, and Prince Aquistide gives her an encouraging nod. She walks to the water and leans down. The moment Tiara Rose reaches out, the sea fairies splash her, angrily yelling, "Don't touch me," and "No way. I hate it." Tiara Rose is left soaked and in shock. She starts to sob, wondering if her ulterior motive of wanting to get in their good graces was too obvious. Prince Aquistide comforts her, explaining that fairies are fickle and that her affinity with sea fairies is likely poor since she grew up in a kingdom without a sea. He encourages her to try greeting them again slowly. Meanwhile, Philin has waded into the sea, wondering if she can swim out to form a better relationship with them. The sea fairies immediately flock to Philin, happily chirping her name and saying they like her. Philin shakes with embarrassment, thinking Tara Rose is more worthy of their favor. Tara Rose watches from the shore, looking dejected, and thinks that it feels terrible to be hated. Prince Aquasteed holds her and tells her not to worry about it. He kisses her forehead, telling her it's okay to take her time. He adds that he is actually relieved she won't be taken from him by the fairies. Tiara Rose blushes at his kindness. Philin watches them from the water, happy to give them time alone. Just then, Tiara Rose looks up and sees a beautiful woman emerging from the sparkling water, holding a fairy in her hand and surrounded by the others like a princess. Prince Aquasteed says her name, Lady Aishira. Tiara Rose is stunned, instantly recognizing the name, Aishira, as the heroine from the sequel. She remembers Akari mentioning that the heroine's encounter event takes place near the sea. Tiara Rose realizes this is a development straight from the game and worries about Prince Aqua falling in love with someone else. Aishira smiles, "Welcome back, Your Highness," and says it's been a long time. Prince Aquasteed confirms he has returned and introduces Tiara Rose as his fiancée. Tiara Rose nervously introduces herself, and Aishira introduces herself as Aishira Pearlland, delighted to make her acquaintance. Tiara Rose gasps, recognizing Pearlland as a powerful duchy in marine forest with authority over the sea. Aishira warmly asks the prince to come and play again soon, and he agrees. Tiara Rose feels dizzy. The terrifying thought crosses her mind, has she just become the villainess of the sequel? She worries that Prince Aqua will now choose Aishira and break off their engagement. She tells Prince Aqua she needs to rest in the carriage for a moment. As she walks away, Prince Aqua calls her name with concern. Tiara Rose apologizes to Aishira for leaving so soon, and Aishira kindly asks if she is alright. Tiara Rose just thinks to herself that she has run away. She rushes into an area with beautiful greenery, wanting to be alone. She sits and sighs, thinking she never imagined the heroine would appear so early. She is grateful she at least knew the heroine's name thanks to Akari. She worries about Prince Aqua and frets over how to face him, knowing she can't just pretend to be in high spirits. As she thinks about how she doesn't want Prince Aqua to be taken from her, she hears a tiny voice ask, "Are you troubled?" She turns in surprise and sees a small, winged fairy looking at her. A beautiful green forest where Tiara Rose has run. She is suddenly surrounded by small, sparkling, green-haired creatures. She wonders if they are fairies and if this could possibly be their blessing. The fairies excitedly fly around her, chirping, "Tiara," and asking for her name. Tiara Rose introduces herself, and the fairies happily exclaim, "Pleased to meet you," and "We love you." Tiara Rose is startled. She knows that forest fairies normally dislike humans, so she is confused why she has been blessed. Elliot then appears, explaining that as her escort he had been following her. He asks her why she ran away and if something is troubling her. Tiara Rose looks down, thinking to herself that she cannot admit she ran away because she was jealous of a girl younger than her. She worries that she has disrupted the game's encounter event by the sea and feels anxious about how the scenario will progress, wishing she had more confidence in her position as Prince Aquasteed's fiancée. She tells Elliot that she is fine and just wanted to stretch her legs after the long carriage ride. As she thinks about how she can't snub the daughter of a duke, especially since Prince Aqua is with Lady Aishira, one of the fairies pops up and offers her a glowing flower. The fairy says the flower contains their blessings because Tiara Rose looked troubled. They encourage her to eat a petal. She tries it and is surprised that it is sweet and has a soft texture. She immediately feels better and gasps as she realizes she could use this to create new sweets. Just then, Prince Aquasteed arrives, calling her name. He firmly squeezes her hand, telling her not to make him worry and to take him with her next time she walks off. He says he is just glad she is alright. Tiara Rose thanks him, touched that he said, "With you." Back at the carriage, Philin asks Tiara Rose if she would like to rest before they leave, mentioning she also has sweets prepared. Tiara Rose, feeling she has caused enough delay, smiles and says she is all right and they can go. They soon arrive at the magnificent marine forest royal castle. Prince Aquasteed asks Tiara Rose if she is feeling fatigued from the long journey. She says she is fine, and he gently strokes her face. He tells her she can rest for the day, as her duties of greeting the king and court will begin tomorrow. He informs her that his room is on the floor above hers and she can come to him if she has any problems. Tiara Rose sits down with some tea, thinking her busy days ahead will hopefully distract her from her worries about Lady Aishira. Prince Aquastede then informs her there will be a welcoming party in her honor in 3 days and that he will have a dress prepared for her. Tiara Rose is delighted at the thought of a dress chosen just for her. He kisses her forehead, thinking she is way too adorable. Tiara Rose protests, and Prince Aquastede sighs, thinking to himself that he wants to marry her right now, but they still have to wait a whole year. Tiara Rose, seeing his expression, reminds him she still has to undergo bridal training to become a proper wife and asks him to be patient. He simply replies, "I know that." On the day of the welcoming party, Tiara Rose is getting ready with her maids. Philin tells her she must shine the brightest as the belle of the ball. They decide on a popular half-up hairstyle. Tiara Rose, feeling embarrassed, asks them to include a deep blue flower because she wants one that matches Prince Aqua's hair. The maids think this is a wonderful idea. One maid returns after knocking, holding a single dark blue rose. She explains that a peculiar thing happened. While she was searching in the garden, a rose was dyed blue right in front of her eyes. Philin suggests it must be a present from the forest fairies, who are known to be able to nurture plants. She adds that Tiara Rose may be the only person in the kingdom to have received the blessing of the forest fairies. Tiara Rose is incredibly happy and blushes, wondering how Prince Aqua will react. At the party, Tiara Rose and Prince Aquastede enter the grand hall and perform the first dance. The guests murmur about how wonderful Tiara Rose looks. Tiara Rose thinks it is her first time dancing so easily with someone. She glances at Prince Aqua, wondering why he is so quiet. He is muttering to himself, "Good grief, my tiara is too cute. I'm troubled." As the dance ends, he smiles and tells her the blue rose in her hair is beautiful. He says that because it is the same color as his hair, it makes him feel she is mine and mine alone. Rose, overwhelmed, replies, "That's because I am all yours." Later, they greet the king of Marine Forest, Sotiris, and the queen, Laviena. They both give Tiara Rose a very warm welcome, and the queen expresses her delight that such a lovely lady will be Aquastede's bride. Tiara Rose is touched by their kindness. She strengthens her resolve, vowing that she cannot let Prince Aquastede be taken by Lady Aishira. She must ensure they do not get close, and this time, she definitely will not run away. At that very moment, Lady Aishira approaches and congratulates them. She asks Tiara Rose how she is finding Marine Forest and then invites her to visit her estate, saying she would like to become good friends. Tiara Rose, internally upset, feels she has no choice but to accept. Prince Aquastede encourages the visit, saying the sea near Aishira's estate is the best in Marine Forest and Tiara Rose will be deeply moved by it. Tiara Rose, fidgeting, immediately regrets her words, realizing she is getting along with the heroine faster than expected. She worries that if they become friends, it will just create more opportunities for Prince Aqua and Lady Aishira to grow closer. Aishira smiles, says she shouldn't monopolize them, and excuses herself. Prince Aquastede then turns to Tiara Rose, asking if she is tired from the greetings. Tiara Rose knows it will take a substantial amount of time to greet all the guests, but she smiles and says, "I'm fine." 3 days after the welcome party, Prince Aquastede was in a room thinking Tiara Rose would be fine, as he knew Tarmo was accompanying her. An aide confirmed she had left the castle after Aquastede asked about her. The prince recalled speaking with Tiara that morning and seeing a conflicted expression on her face, which made him wonder. Meanwhile, Tiara Rose was in a carriage looking out the window, noticing the beautiful flowers and trees and enjoying the nice weather and fresh morning air. She looked back on a memory of promising Lady Aishira she would visit. Tiara Rose now felt she was too impulsive to promise the heroine she would meet, but she had to keep her word. She remembered her maid Philin looking depressed while telling her something she heard from Elliot, as Tiara Rose was being sent to Lady Aishira's place. In that same flashback, Philin had excitedly told Tiara Rose about special fish that can only be found in the sea near Lady Aishira's estate, and Tiara Rose had replied that she looked forward to seeing them. Back in the present, Tiara Rose looked worried in her carriage, thinking the only saving grace was that Prince Aqua would not be joining them. She was afraid her actions might trigger a romantic flag between Prince Aqua and Lady Aishira, a thought she couldn't bear. She then looked out the window and asked her escort if he was all right, revealing Tarmo riding his horse beside the carriage. Tiara Rose apologized to Tarmo, feeling guilty for making him go out of his way to act as her escort, and asked if it was a bother. Tarmo, looking proud, reassured her it was not at all and that he takes great pride in his duty as her escort, as noted in a caption identifying him as Tiara Rose's escort, formerly Aquastede's. Tiara Rose thanked him while Tarmo looked comfortable on his horse. Soon, Tiara Rose arrived at a grand mansion where Lady Aishira and her maids stood waiting. Aishira welcomed Lady Tiara Rose, saying she had been expecting her. Tiara Rose smiled and thanked Lady Aishira for the invitation. Internally, however, Tiara Rose felt emotionally drained being alone with Aishira and wished her own maid Philin could be there with her, though both ladies kept smiling at each other. Aishira showed Tiara Rose a beautiful garden with a large fountain full of fish. Tiara Rose exclaimed that she had never seen such lovely fish before. Lady Aishira explained that it was a saltwater fountain and that the rare little fish were a breed she had raised herself in the sea. Tiara Rose, looking surprised, asked if these were the special fish she had been told about, recalling that she'd heard some fish only live in Lady Aishira's sea. Tiara Rose privately reflected that Aishira's ability to raise rare fish was proof she was loved by sea fairies and had their blessings. A nearby attendant elaborated, explaining that Lady Aishira is second to none in marine forest when it comes to the sea. He added she is skilled at nurturing sea creatures like fish, coral, and pearls and even assists Prince Aquastede with his work. Tiara Rose was stunned by this, thinking Aishira was incredibly accomplished for her young age of 14. Tiara Rose felt that Aishira was polished to perfection, just as expected of the sequel's heroine, and that Aishira completely outclassed her. Lady Aishira then announced that tea was being prepared for them at the beach and invited Tiara Rose to walk there, to which Tiara Rose thanked her. At the beach, Tiara Rose remarked that it was as beautiful as the rumors said. Lady Aishira asked Tiara Rose if she would like to see the sea up close. Tiara Rose eagerly agreed, saying she would love to take a closer look and thanked her. Standing by the water, Tiara Rose admired the beautiful sea and the many fish. Lady Aishira then surprised her by asking if she would like to go into the sea. Tiara Rose was startled and quickly declined, saying that would be impossible for her. Lady Aishira smiled and explained her powers, saying she is blessed by the sea fairies and can use magic to allow them to breathe underwater. She added that she can also create an air bubble so they can enter the water without their clothes getting wet. Tiara Rose was amazed, thinking Aishira was incredible and could do pretty much anything. She privately wondered how she could ever compete against such a kind-hearted heroine who is loved by sea fairies. Lady Aishira then suggested they warm up with some tea first, noting that the bubble would keep them dry but they would still be surrounded by cool water. Tiara Rose agreed and mentioned she had also brought sweets for them to enjoy together. Just then, Philin appeared, carrying a box of sweets and announcing their arrival. Lady Aishira looked at the assorted cakes with delight, exclaiming, "My!" and remarking that it was the first time she had seen cakes in those shapes. She told Tiara Rose they looked very good, and Tiara Rose was happy that she liked them. As Tiara Rose took a seat at the tea table by the shore, she thought about what a wonderful and rare experience it was to have tea time by the sea, a memory she would cherish. During their tea, Lady Aishira asked Tiara Rose if it was true that she and Prince Aquastede met at the academy. Tiara Rose confirmed this, adding that the prince has always been very kind and considerate towards her. She fondly recalled enjoying sweets with him serving as her escort, and their journey from Lapis Lazuli. Lady Aishira giggled, saying it was wonderful that the two of them were marrying out of love. Tiara Rose was confused by this reaction, wondering why Lady Aishira didn't seem to long for Prince Aquastede herself, but Aishira just smiled. Tiara Rose probed further, asking if Aishira had someone else she liked, secretly hoping this was the case so Prince Aqua wouldn't be involved in the sequel's events and she could support Aishira's love. She added that a lovely lady like Aishira must have many suitors. Aishira gently denied this, explaining that she leaves all matters of her engagement to her father and that she would be happy as long as she could stay near the sea. Tiara Rose noted that this was a common way of thinking. Aishira then changed the subject, pointing to the coral and fish and asking if they weren't flourishing nicely. Aishira then admitted shyly that she has not yet experienced her first love. Tiara Rose observed her, concluding that Aishira was not lying and was genuinely a sweet and demure girl who had never been in love. This new information made Tiara Rose worry, fearing that this first love was destined to be with Prince Aqua. If that were true, she felt she should try to keep them apart. As Tiara Rose sipped her tea, she felt that at least the worst-case scenario she had been worrying about seemed to be averted for now. Aishira then stood up and suggested they head into the sea, promising there were many cute fish to see. Tiara Rose agreed, saying she couldn't wait. Lady Aishira then cast her magic, and a large bubble of air glided down to envelop them. Tiara Rose was astonished, whispering, "Amazing," as they descended. Underwater inside the bubble, Tiara Rose was surprised that the fish didn't get frightened when approached by humans. Aishira explained that the fish don't mind her because she dives in the water every day and is on good terms with them. Tiara Rose then admired the beautiful coral and asked if Aishira used it to make accessories. Aishira confirmed that they do and said she was delighted that Tiara Rose found them appealing. Tiara Rose privately thought that Aishira was just like a goddess of the sea. Tiara Rose thought how lovely it all was and that she never imagined she would be able to walk through the depths of the sea. She felt excited and wanted to explore the different types of coral. Aishira then called her name and held out her hand, giving Tiara Rose some fish bait. She explained it was a small amount but would attract many fish. Aishira warned her to be careful, as her hand would get wet when she stuck it outside the bubble, and it was important that the rest of her body stayed inside. Tiara Rose thanked her and held the bait. Tiara Rose put her hand outside the bubble, and small fish immediately swarmed to it, poking her palm. She smiled brightly, laughing that it tickles and thinking how cute the fish were. Lady Aishira watched, glad that Tiara Rose was having fun. She then said she would head back to the surface to prepare more tea. Tiara Rose, who was enjoying herself very much, offered to go back with her. Aishira told her it was all right and insisted she enjoy the moment to the fullest, reminding her that she still had bait left. Tiara Rose accepted the kind offer, and as she watched Aishira float away in her own bubble, she thought to herself that Aishira truly seemed like a good person. Left alone in the bubble, Tiara Rose reflected that it had been a long time since she felt so relaxed and relieved of her tension. She thought that while her anxieties fade when she is with Prince Aqua, he makes her heart beat so fast that she can't ever truly relax. She blushed as she wondered just how many times he kisses her in a single day. She continued this thought until she became completely flustered, internally screaming that she was going to die of embarrassment. She was glad no one else was there to see her. Calming down, Tiara Rose's thoughts returned to Lady Aishira, concluding she was a genuinely kind girl. She wondered if Aishira could also be reincarnated or if she possessed any knowledge about Japan or the game. Tiara Rose decided that based on her hair and eye color, Aishira was definitely not Japanese, so that was probably not the case. However, Tiara Rose realized that if Aishira wasn't Japanese, it would be a tricky situation to deal with. She wished Aishira was scheming and selfish like Akari from the original game, as she could act against her without reservations then. Her biggest worry was what would happen if Aishira bravely embraced a pure love blossoming within her, as Tiara Rose would then truly be in the villainess's position. Tiara Rose gasped, realizing she had been gone for a while and that everyone would worry if she took too long, though she was glad she came down. She surfaced with a big splash, looking around and asking where everyone was. She saw the group on the beach, including Aishira, Tarmo, and the maids, but was shocked to see Prince Aqua was there as well. As she watched, Prince Aquasteed smiled and reached his hand out, gently touching Lady Aishira's head. Tiara Rose was horrified and immediately whirled around in the water, thinking, "No, I don't want to see it." She felt dizzy and began to shake. Her mind raced with panic. Was this the power of the game? Was it an inescapable fate? She wondered if Aqua and Aishira had always been close and if she was the one who had gotten between them. Why, she thought, no way. She feared she had truly taken on the role of the villainess who gets in the way of their happiness. But she knew that if she went down that path, Prince Aqua would end up hating her. Determined, Tiara Rose slapped her own cheeks, saying, "All right," to herself. Prince Aqua saw her and called out her name. Tiara Rose stood up with a big splash, having decided that she would not run away. She rushed out of the water towards a confused Prince Aqua and paused right in front of him. Tiara Rose then tugged on Prince Aqua's jacket and looked up at him, pleading, "Please don't leave me all alone, Prince Aqua." The prince was stunned for a moment before pulling her into a tight squeeze. As Lady Aishira and the others watched, he told Tiara Rose, "This is no good. You're way too cute, Tiara." Later, Tiara Rose was seen lying exhausted on a sofa while Prince Aqua looked on. She groaned, thinking her head was about to burst and that she was overthinking everything. She felt pathetic, but then she remembered that whenever they are together, Prince Aqua always dotes on her. She recalled the image of Prince Aqua patting Lady Aishira's head. Lying on the sofa, Tiara Rose knew his ties with Aishira ran deep and understood it was work-related, as Aishira sells fish and coral to the castle. Still, she felt she might melt from the sheer jealousy mixed with the embarrassment from Prince Aqua's affection. She wondered if her body could handle it all and felt herself drifting off to sleep, thinking that might be a good thing. A flashback shows Prince Aquasteed discussing a hair ornament design with Lady Aishira. He suggests tweaking it a little more, and she agrees. Aquasteed then specifies that he would like some dark blue included in the colors. Aishira notices his fond expression as he thinks of Tiara Rose and understands, promising to prepare a beautiful shade of blue. Aquasteed asks her to keep this a secret. As he leaves, Aishira smiles, thinking that Prince Aquasteed is really in love with Lady Tiara Rose. She reflects that the country will see a peaceful reign, though she admits to herself that she feels just a little bit envious. The story then returns to Tiaros, who has just woken up from her nap on the sofa feeling refreshed. She calls for Tarmo, who is waiting for her outside the room. She steps out and thanks him for waiting, explaining that she wants to memorize the castle layout and his help is invaluable. As Tarmo begins to give her a tour, Taro spots Prince Aqua and Lady Aishira talking on a terrace in the distance. She grows anxious, recalling that Prince Aqua had told her he would be in his office all day and that he doesn't handle official duties on the terrace. She worries, wondering if he lied to her because she had been selfish and clung to him earlier. Tarmo reassures her, pointing out that they appear to be heading back to the office and that there is nothing to worry about. Tiara Rose apologizes, admitting she was overthinking. Tarmo kindly tells her she is always welcome to talk to him if anything is on her mind. He then suggests they visit the forest at the back of the castle, as there are beautiful flowers there she may have never seen before. Tiara Rose's spirits lift, and she says she would love to see them. In the forest, Tiara Rose is immediately surrounded by squealing forest fairies, who are thrilled to see her. She greets them warmly, and they all squeal with delight. Tiara Rose remembers she brought cookies and offers them to the fairies. The tiny fairies are overjoyed, exclaiming, "Wow," as they take the treats. They happily eat the cookies, declaring them delicious, super crunchy, and that they love them. Tiara Rose is overwhelmed by their cuteness. One of the fairies then tugs on her hand, urging her to follow them over here. Tiara Rose asks what it is and follows them deeper into the woods, with Tarmo close behind. The fairies continue to call for Tiara Rose while also flying around Tarmo, who looks on in surprise. The fairies chatter among themselves that he is a good person and protects Tiara, while Tarmo wonders who they are. The fairies lead Tiara Rose to a single, beautiful flower, and as she looks at it, a glowing gate of trees magically appears before her. Tiara Rose is amazed at the sight and the brightly sparkling leaves, while Tarmo stands by in stunned silence. Tiara Rose hesitates, thinking she should tell Tarmo before going, as it feels wrong to leave her escort. She tells the fairies she needs to go back for a moment, but they protest, insisting their king is just beyond the gate. Before she can do anything, the fairies tug her through the portal. Tiara Rose finds herself in a strange, ornate room, wondering where she is. A male voice greets her, saying, "So, you're Taros." She looks up and sees a man with long, light-colored hair. The fairies flutter around him, squealing that they have brought Tiara to their majesty. Tiara Rose realizes he must be the king of the fairies. She quickly bows, offering her greetings, but he tells her to lift her head. He introduces himself as Keith and says it's his pleasure, noting that the forest fairies have taken an immense liking to her. He looks at her closely, smirks, and calls her interesting. Keith then tilts her chin up, observing that she has a very peculiar soul, one that is unstable yet beautiful. He adds that she has a very nice scent, as sweet as candy, and he understands why the fairies are so taken with her. Tiara Rose, flattered, explains the scent might be from the cookies she has. Internally, she realizes this overbearing and handsome fairy king must be one of the game's capture targets. She offers him a cookie, which he accepts and eats, remarking that it smells good and is delicious. Tiara Rose confirms that the cookies contain her magical powers. She explains that while her powers aren't very strong, she can infuse them into confections to help improve body condition and heal minor injuries. Keith grins, and when he notices Tiara Rose looks troubled, she admits that she finds human life difficult because of its many obligations, unlike the freedom fairies have. Keith pats her head, promising to be her source of strength if she ever needs anything. Tiara Rose thanks him for his kindness. Keith then asks if she is from another kingdom. She explains that she is the fiancée of this kingdom's crown prince, Aquastide, and has traveled from Lapis Lazuli. Keith remarks, "That guy, huh?" adding that he knows of Aquastide because he is royalty, but Aquastide does not know of him. He invites her to sit and asks what kind of person Aquastide is. Tiara Rose happily lists his many good points. He is very kind, skilled at magic, supported by his people, and diligent in his duties. After talking for many hours, Tiara Rose's mood saddens, and she confesses that even though she knows Aquastide loves her, she still feels insecure and fears he will ultimately choose someone else. Keith laughs, calling human love troublesome. Tiara Rose sips her tea but then suddenly panics, realizing what time it must be. She leaps to her feet, realizing she has been gone for a long time without telling Tarmo and must have caused a commotion. She says she must leave and asks for the exit. Keith stands and grabs her arm, telling her he will send her back. In a flash of light, Tiara Rose is teleported directly into her own room. Prince Aquastede is already in the room and calls her name. When he sees Keith standing with her, he furiously draws his sword, shouting, "Who the hell are you? Get away from Tiara." Keith, however, simply strokes Tiara Rose's face and smirks at the prince, saying he would be a more suitable partner for her. Aquastede demands he let her go. Tiara Rose slaps Keith's hand away and steps between them, telling the Fairy King to stop, as she is Aquastede's fiancé. Aquastede is stunned to hear the title Fairy King. He immediately sheathes his sword and apologizes for his impoliteness, stating he was unaware of Keith's identity. Keith says he'll forgive him since he's in a good mood. Aquastede immediately pulls Tiara Rose into a tight embrace, declaring that she is his fiancée and that it is unbecoming of a king to get so close to her. Keith just laughs, noting how much Tiara is loved. He decides to leave, but as thanks for the cookies, he tells Tiara Rose to call for him if she's ever in trouble. He kisses her hand and vanishes. Prince Aquastede is left standing in silence, looking furious. He then wordlessly scoops Tiara Rose up into his arms. She is too flustered by the tense atmosphere to ask him to put her down. As he carries her, Tiara Rose apologizes for worrying him and being away so late. Aquastede tells her that's not why he's upset, as he already received a full report from Tarmo about the fairies taking her. Tiara Rose is relieved he doesn't hate her. When she asks to be put down, he refuses, telling her to stay by his side. Tiara Rose then realizes he is definitely angry. In fact, he's in the worst mood she's ever seen. She apologizes again. Aquastede pulls her close and asks, "Do you think that I'm angry?" As she trembles, he slides his hand to her neck and kisses and bites her skin. Tiara Rose is stunned. Aquastede tells her she is too good at playing with his heart. He asks if she's apologizing because Keith touched her, admitting that is one reason he is jealous. He holds her close, asking, "Even though Tara is mine, right? And don't you understand?" Leaning over her on the bed, he tells her, "That is what I'm angry about." Tiara Rose is dizzy with confusion, wondering what that means. Aquastede tells her he is going to disinfect all of her and begins kissing her deeply. As he kisses her, he demands she show him her cute face and call him by his name. Rose, blushing, manages to say, "Eki, Prince Aqua." She then has a sudden realization. She had addressed Keith without any honorifics. She wonders if that is why Aquastede is angry. She remembers he allowed her to call him Aqua before and wonders if he wants her to drop the honorifics for him as well. Deciding to try, she shyly looks at him and says, "Aqua?" Aquastede's eyes widen for a second before he pulls her into another tight squeeze, saying, "That's right." Tiara Rose is in a lesson with her royal tutor, who informs her that for the next week, she will be studying the topic of fairies. The tutor, praising Tiara Rose as accomplished, hands her a detailed book on the subject and encourages her to study hard as the future queen of the country. Tiara Rose flips through the book and thanks her tutor, feeling glad that her studies from lapis lazuli have been useful. As Tiara Rose reads, she realizes the book contains information that is more in-depth than what is publicly known, and she wonders if lapis lazuli had restrictions on this knowledge. She makes a mental note to familiarize herself with the prohibitions on what can be made public. The tutor then asks Tiara Rose about her conversations with the forest fairies, noting that Tiara Rose is especially favored by them. Tiara Rose, seen walking in a garden as fairies play, explains that they flock to her when she visits and they usually have simple conversations about things like flowers. She then adds that they also love confectionaries, which surprises her tutor. Tiara Rose, who has also received the blessings of the sea fairies, wonders if they too would eat sweets if she offered them. The tutor seems surprised, stating this is the first she has heard of fairies eating human food. The tutor admits she isn't liked by the sea fairies, so she cannot say for sure, but she encourages Tiara Rose to try. Tiara Rose agrees to do just that. As the lesson ends, the tutor expresses that she looks forward to seeing Tiara Rose become queen, noting what a great honor it is to be blessed by the forest fairies. Tiara Rose thanks her and vows to study properly under her tutelage so she can become a queen the kingdom can be proud of. Just as the tutor is leaving, Prince Aquastede arrives, surprising Tiara Rose. Prince Aquastede walks into the room, observing that the lesson seems to be over. The tutor confirms they are done for the day, mentally running through all the subjects Tiara Rose has mastered, including etiquette, dance, embroidery, and cultural studies. She informs the prince that due to Tiara Rose's stellar performance, they covered 6 months' worth of content in just 1 month, with only the week of fairy lectures remaining. Aquastede remarks that Tiara is indeed exemplary. Tiara Rose blushes at the praise and promises to keep doing her best. Prince Aquastide then leads Tiara Rose to his office. Once inside, he tells her he wants to have a short discussion about things to come. He reassures her that she can relax, as only his aides are present. Tiara Rose agrees with a nervous chuckle. Aquastide explains that he has been receiving daily reports on her bridal training and that all her instructors have sung her praises. He then announces that for the remaining period of her training, he wants her to observe his work. Tiara Rose looks surprised, so he clarifies that while she won't be doing his official duties, it's the best way for her to understand the country's affairs and familiarize herself with proceedings for when she accompanies him on inspections. Tiara Rose hesitates, pointing out that as only his fiancée, she feels she shouldn't be privy to Marine Forest's state of affairs. Aquastide brushes off her concern, telling her it won't be a problem. While Tiara Rose is happy that he trusts her, she privately worries about the game's original plot, where the heroine Lady Aishira could become queen instead. She clenches her fist, scolding herself for losing heart, which she knows is a bad habit. She quickly regains her composure, sparkles, and tells Prince Aqua she will do her best to support him and that he can count on her. Aquastide agrees but says there is one thing he wants her to promise. He insists that if she ever faces difficulties, she must consult him right away and not shoulder them by herself. Tiara Rose smiles, unaware that Lady Aishira would be a frequent visitor to that very office for work-related purposes. A new routine begins for Tiara Rose. In the morning, she has her lessons on fairies, and in the afternoon, she observes Prince Aqua as he works in his office. One day, Philin interrupts her studies with tea, telling her she is overexerting herself and needs a break. Tiara Rose sips the tea but sighs, saying, "Not yet," as she still feels she is not of much use to the prince. She wonders what she can do to be helpful. Philin reassures her that her presence alone is more than enough and helps Prince Aquastide very much. Tiara Rose thinks back to her time in the office, noting that Lady Aishira, who is only 14, would drop by for work. She reflects on how phenomenal Aishira is at her job, something unimaginable for a 14-year-old in Japan. Tiara Rose looks puzzled, asking how just being there can be useful. Philin explains that Tiara Rose's presence alone puts the prince in high spirits, filling him with energy and allowing him to make good progress on his work. Philin smiles, thinking how adorable that is. She then pivots, suggesting that since Tiara Rose is in bridal training, frequent contact might not be ideal. Instead, Philin proposes that Tiara Rose make some sweets. Tiara Rose's eyes light up as Philin reminds her that her confections have magic imbued in them, and sweets with a rejuvenating effect would be perfect. Tiara Rose loves the idea, praising Philin's cleverness. Tiara Rose immediately gets up, energized and ready to start right away, exclaiming that making confectionaries is something she can do to be useful. Philin quickly holds up a stop sign, pointing out that it's already late and would be inconvenient. She suggests they do it tomorrow. Tiara Rose agrees and decides to bake first thing in the morning. As Tiara Rose excitedly gets ready for bed, Philin looks on, glad to have helped. However, her expression darkens as she privately worries, noting that Lady Aishira visited again that day and that Tiara Rose has been wearing a pained expression lately. The next morning, Tiara Rose is in a spacious kitchen, wearing an apron and her hair in pigtails, happy to have borrowed it. Philin proudly confirms that this is, in truth, a private kitchen Prince Aquastide had specially prepared for Tiara Rose's personal use. Forest fairies fly in to greet her, "Good morning," and they present her with a bowl of yummy forest berries and fruits. Tiara Rose is delighted, calling them very scrumptious, and decides to use the ingredients they brought her. She tells Philin she will bake a cake, and a fairy shows her an edible flower. Philin gets excited, saying it sounds delectable. Tiara Rose recalls that shops in Japan also used edible flowers, thinking they will make the cake a sight to behold. As she muses, Philin suddenly screams her name in shock. Tiara Rose had casually popped the flower in her mouth and begun chewing it. Tiara Rose then offers a flower to Philin, who eats it. Tiara Rose explains that the flower is sweet and she'll use it on the cake. Philin is stunned, amazed that the flower is not only delicious but also naturally sweet and not bitter at all. Later, Tiara Rose looks fondly at her finished cake, decorated with the berries and flowers, wondering if it will make Prince Aqua happy. Philin, however, looks on in horror in the background. Philin grimaces as she recalls her plan. After seeing Tiara Rose off to the office, she had intended to bring the cake, but she discovered that Lady Aishira had also brought a cake. Philin couldn't believe her bad luck. Philin inspects Aishira's cake, noting it looks like it was made by a top-class chef. It's topped with fruits and chocolate, and Philin has to admit it's something Tiara Rose would love. She briefly imagines dousing the cake with pepper sauce but quickly scolds herself, thinking she can't resort to such underhanded means as Tiararos made. Her new plan is to time the service so Prince Aquastede is already full from Tiararos' cake before Aishira's is even presented. She sighs, noting that Tiararos' face always clouds over when Lady Aishira is around. She decides she'll make sure Aquastede eats Tiararos' entire cake, confident he will, since it was handmade by his fiancée. As she plots, there's a knock on the door. Tiararos and Philin enter the office, with Tiararos announcing she has prepared a cake for him. Prince Aquastede looks up, pleasantly surprised, and agrees to take a short break. Lady Aishira, who is also present, expresses her amazement that Tiararos can make confectionaries. Aquastede takes a bite and smiles, declaring that all the sweets Tiara makes are delicious. Tiararos beams, explaining she used flowers and berries from the forest fairies. Aquastede tells her he'll share his detailed impressions with her tonight, causing Tiararos to blush. Just then, another knock is heard, and a servant enters, pardoning the intrusion as she wheels in Lady Aishira's cake. Philin freezes in horror, thinking she should have hidden it. Tiararos looks on, confused. Lady Aishira confirms the cake is from her, a new creation by her family chef. She explains she brought it since Tiararos has also been visiting the office, though she admits her timing is off. Tiararos, a sweets lover from her past life, looks at the cake with longing. Tiararos is served a slice of Aishira's cake and is visibly happy as she eats it, thinking how delicious professional cakes are. She compliments Lady Aishira on the lovely cake, while privately sulking that she can't make one like it. Prince Aquastede watches her eat and remarks that she looks so blissful, it makes him want to keep watching her. Aishira promises to bring more next time. Blushing from his comment, Tiararos then asks Prince Aquastede which cake he prefers. Philin, who had been relieved that no comparison was drawn, is now on edge. Tiararos' heart pounds. She is torn between wanting and not wanting to know the answer. Philin, however, is completely confident, believing it's unthinkable that the prince would choose another cake over the one his beloved fiancée made. Prince Aquastede looks serious, and after a long pause, he simply says, "Let's see." Philin is aghast, wondering why he didn't give an immediate answer. Suddenly, the fairy king, Keith, appears in the office. He casually plucks a piece of cake from the trolley and tells Aquastede not to rack his brains, as it's obvious that Tiara's cake is more delicious. Aquastede glares, annoyed at his indecision. Keith smiles, pats Tiararos' head, and tells her he'll be back for more before vanishing. Tiararos feels better, thinking he's reliable as expected of a capture target. Later, an aide is cleaning the office and starts to clear away Tiararos' cake, but Aquastede stops him. The aide is surprised, noting the prince doesn't usually eat sweets. Aquastede takes a slice, saying it's an exception because Tiara made it and admits it's delicious. The aide asks why he didn't just say that earlier. Aquastede explains that it is important to keep Lady Aishira in a good mood, especially during her stay at the castle. If she were to get upset, her negative emotions would spill over to the sea fairies, causing the sea to rage with storms. Conversely, her happiness brings bountiful blessings from the sea. The aide understands but says he still worries about the uneasy look he sometimes sees in Lady Tiararos' eyes. The chapter ends with Tiararos jolting awake in her bed, screaming as she suddenly remembers the CG of the gentleman dripping with water and beauty. Tiararos jolts awake in her bed, suddenly remembering a key image from her past life. It was the sole sample CG released for the sequel game. A date near the seashore showed Prince Aquastede looking handsome and dripping wet after protecting the heroine. As she sits in her bed, Tiararos blushes, covering her face and thinking that while the man in the CG was cool, her usual, incredibly kind Prince Aqua is also very cool. She wonders when that event is supposed to take place, guessing it will be triggered by a walk on the seashore. She has no idea of the in-game timing, as the CG was released just before she died. She sighs with relief, realizing that Prince Aquastede currently has no plans to go to the sea for official business. Still, she worries, wondering if he might go in his private time or if Lady Aishira might invite him. She quickly dismisses this, knowing he is busy with work and spends all his free time with her. Tiararos acknowledges she can't restrain Lady Aishira, a duke's daughter, when she is just a marquis's daughter from another kingdom. She clenches her fist, resolving to find out his plans and stop any trip to the sea with all her ability. She vows that she absolutely cannot allow Prince Aqua and Lady Aishira to be alone together by the sea and decides that, in the worst-case scenario, she will go along with them. With her mind made up, she snuggles back into bed and falls asleep. Later, Tiara Rose is at breakfast when a clatter makes her look up. Prince Aquastede, who is eating with her, casually announces that he will be going to Lady Aishira's sea for an inspection. Tiara Rose is completely shocked, thinking this can't be the event she was dreading. The prince explains that a new species of coral has apparently been discovered. He notices her distressed expression and asks if she is all right. Tiara Rose can only tremble and say she is fine, but internally she is desperate, not wanting him to go and not wanting Lady Aishira to see that cool, wet side of him. Remembering her vow from the previous night, Tiara Rose knows she must act. Prince Aquastede calls her name and asks her to come to him. He gently strokes her hair, telling her she doesn't need to hold back and that it's all right to be selfish with him. He coaxes her to tell him what's wrong, but she hesitates, worrying about interfering with his duties. He leads her to a sofa to sit down and asks her to tell him what's on her mind. Tiara Rose looks away, saying she shouldn't impose when he has business to attend to. Prince Aquastede leans in and gently places his finger on her lips, hushing her. He then playfully rubs her lips, smiling as he says he won't stop until she tells him, which makes Tiara Rose blush. Finally, Tiara Rose admits her selfish request. She doesn't want him to go to the sea. Prince Aquastede is puzzled by this. He first wonders if she is jealous of his connection with Lady Aishira. He then dismisses that, recalling that Tiara Rose is hated by the sea fairies and has been diligently studying about them, so it's inconceivable she'd want to go near the sea herself. He smiles, thinking it's fine. Tiara Rose is stunned when he simply agrees, "Then I won't go anymore." He explains that there is no particular need for him to go personally and that he will send Elliot to do the observation instead. He tells her that this small amount of selfishness is cute. Overcome with gratitude, Tiara Rose thanks him. Prince Aquastede then kisses her, telling her to come straight to him if she ever feels lonely so he can spoil her even more. Tiara Rose is filled with affection and hugs him tightly, promising she will. Their tender moment is interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Tiara Rose instantly scuttles away from the prince, shaking with embarrassment at the thought of being caught. An aide's voice announces that Lady Aishira has arrived and is waiting in the office. Prince Aquastede tells the aide he will be there shortly after getting ready. As they prepare to leave, Tiara Rose feels flustered, and Aquastede tells her they should quickly finish breakfast. She is now worried, because even though he said he wouldn't go, Lady Aishira still came to call for him. She fears that this will somehow still lead to the dripping with water and beauty event. They walk to the office and greet Lady Aishira. Prince Aquastede apologizes and explains that Elliot will be going in his place. He then suggests they all take a walk to the rose garden to meet Elliot on the way. Tiara Rose happily agrees, thinking it sounds wonderful and that she and Aquastede can be alone after Aishira leaves. Lady Aishira also agrees, saying she loves flowers. In the rose garden, Lady Aishira is captivated by the beautiful flowers, exclaiming how pretty they are. She admits she has seen more coral than flowers in her life. Tiara Rose tells her that her ability to raise coral is a wonderful accomplishment she should be proud of. As Aishira thanks her, they stop by some white roses. Aishira notes that the white roses complement Tiara Rose's hair, but as she speaks, she suddenly staggers near the edge of a large fountain. Tiara Rose cries out, "Lady Aishira?" In an instant, Prince Aquastede dashes past Tiara Rose and lunges to protect Aishira, shouting her name. He catches her, but their momentum carries them both over the edge, and they fall into the fountain with an enormous splash. Tiara Rose rushes to the edge, calling out to the prince. Inside the fountain, Aquastede and Aishira are blushing, their faces very close. Aquastede then stands up, soaking wet, and pushes his hair back from his face. Tiara Rose gasps. It is the exact scene she was dreading, the gentleman dripping with water and beauty. She is horrified, realizing that even though the location was different, a fountain, not the sea, the event still happened. She wonders if the power of the game is absolute and if it's impossible for her to change the flow of events. As Lady Aishira reaches up to touch the prince's face, he reassures her that he's fine and just glad she is unhurt. Unable to watch them together, Tiara Rose feels it's no use. Fearing she will break down in tears, she turns and runs away from the garden. Prince Aquastede calls out, "Tiara?" But she doesn't stop. She runs through the halls, panting, and thinks about her promise not to run away. She couldn't bear seeing the event happen, and she worries his heart might now sway to the heroine. She wonders how she can become stronger. She stops in her room, tears streaming down her face. She clenches her fist, telling herself she is fine and just needs to dry her tears, reminding herself that Prince Aqua only has eyes for her. As she covers her weeping eyes, she hears a chuckle. She whirls around and is shocked to see Keith, the Fairy King. He smirks and asks if Aquasteed made her cry again. Tiara Rose denies it, saying he's wrong. Keith replies that her heart is weeping. Tiara Rose decides to be a proper host, as he is a king, and prepares him tea. Keith relaxes on her sofa, calling humans troublesome. After she serves him, Keith notes the tea smells good and Tiara Rose thinks that fairies must like tea. He suddenly grabs her hand, chuckles that her tears have stopped, and yanks her to her feet, saying, "Anyhow, let's go." A startled Tiara Rose asks, "Where to?" Keith teleports them both out of the room just as Prince Aquasteed and his aide arrive at her door. The aide suggests she isn't inside. Aquasteed pauses with his hand on the door, wondering if she is crying. He thinks to himself that his darling princess is so poised and holds herself back, rarely letting him dote on her as he wishes. He wishes she would ask to be spoiled more, but doubts she would be so upfront. He sadly wonders if he's just not good enough for her. He calls her name and opens the door. Finding the room empty, his expression darkens. He immediately concludes that the Fairy King took her and vows to bring her back at once. Prince Aquasteed stands in his ornate uniform, reassuring a blonde-haired woman that there is no need to worry about Tiara. He then explains that he unfortunately has urgent business to attend to and will have to postpone the observation. The blonde woman, Aishira, looks on with a relieved smile. She lets out a sigh of phew, thinking to herself that she is just happy Lady Tiara Rose is safe and doesn't mind the observation being delayed. Later, Aquasteed is back in a room with Aishira and another man, Elliot, while Aishira points out that he is soaked and will catch a cold. Aquasteed touches his head as he realizes she's right, and he then closes his eyes and uses his magic. A powerful wind suddenly swirls around him, causing Aishira to watch in wide-eyed amazement with a wow, as the whoosh of magic rushes past her. A close-up shows her stunned and slightly blushing face as Aquasteed, now completely dry, runs a hand through his white hair. Aishira, holding a hand to her mouth, is amazed at how swiftly he dried himself, while Elliot just smiles calmly. Aquasteed turns his back to them to face a large bookshelf, telling Aishira that it will be all right as she looks back at him with a worried expression. He then turns to face her again with a gentle and determined smile, confidently promising that he will definitely make Tiara Rose happy. The scene suddenly shifts to a beautiful garden where Tiara Rose is surrounded by tiny, winged fairies. A long-haired man named Keith suddenly grabs her arm from behind while holding a large flower, causing a fairy to exclaim that it's Tiara. Tiara Rose looks shocked and demands to know what Keith is doing, but he calmly tells her not to yell. She angrily replies that taking her so suddenly is just like an abduction. With wide, teary eyes, Tiara Rose thinks about how she was taken without even saying a word to Prince Aqua and demands that Keith send her back immediately. Keith leans in close, holding her chin and telling her that she probably hasn't noticed, but she looked terrible, even if she's a bit better now. He then snaps his fingers and tells her she should get some rest, but Tiara Rose protests that her looking terrible has nothing to do with this. Following the conjure of magic, Keith, who is revealed to be the Fairy King, holds the massive flower as Tiara Rose marvels that she has never seen one so huge. Keith simply thinks, acknowledging that as the Fairy King, he has many tricks. He then places the flower down, where it magically transforms into a large, fluffy bed, causing a small fairy to crash. He reassures Tiara Rose he won't harm her, but as she tries to leave, saying it's time to return, he grabs her arm. Tiara Rose is suddenly tucked into the giant flower bed, looking surprised as fairies fly around telling her to go to sleep. She asks if they mean a lack of sleep, and one fairy warns her that it's bad for her skin. Keith tells her to just sleep for now, and as Tiara Rose snuggles into the fluffy bed, she notes that it smells nice. Tiara Rose sits up, insisting she is fine and feeling like Thumbelina, clearly touched by their concern. The fairies all gather around, insisting she rest, while one points out that her eyes are red and another offers her a flower. Tiara Rose touches her face, admitting it's true she hasn't slept enough and her eyes are red from crying, which only makes the fairies insist, no. Keith stands nearby with his arms crossed, telling her, "They can do." He reminds her that the forest fairies are capricious, but Tiara Rose begs him to let her go home, saying she appreciates the offer but would rather rest in her own room. She tries to get up again, calling out to Keith, and insisting she must go. Keith, however, places his hand on her head, ruffling her hair and gently pushing her back down onto the bed with a thwump. He tells her to rest for a while where she can be at ease. Tiara Rose, looking defenseless, falls asleep almost instantly. Keith watches her, sighing and thinking she must be going through a lot to fall asleep so easily in this situation. He continues to watch over the sleeping Duros as worried fairies hover nearby, one asking, "Your Majesty, what is wrong with her?" Keith explains she is just tired and tells the fairies to play with her when she wakes, to which they all cheer, "Okay." Tiara Rose sleeps peacefully while the fairies plan to wake up with her, and Keith leaves the room, closing the door and thinking that this is so troublesome. Walking through a hall, Keith thinks about Tiara Rose, the princess consort loved by the forest fairies. He reflects on the 3 types of fairies in the kingdom of marine forest, each ruled by a fairy king. The fairies give blessings to humans they like, and he lists the sea fairies, shown as a mermaid, as the most amicable toward humans, followed by the sky fairies and finally his own forest fairies. Keith then recalls a story from a few hundred years ago about a human girl named Aishira who was loved by the sea fairies. When she faced hardship, the sea fairies, who have a strong attachment to those they love, reacted intensely, causing the sea to turn red, the fish to disappear, and the coral to wither. Keith muses that while humans are troublesome, the sea fairies are no better. Because of this, the kingdom of marine forest has always been careful when dealing with humans loved by fairies. In a separate scene, another character reflects that a story from hundreds of years ago is not a recent event. Keith smiles to himself, thinking that only one person in history has ever been recognized by all 3 fairy kings, sea, forest, and sky, to become the true king of marine forest. He wonders if Aquastide, as the next king, will truly be able to protect his kingdom and his princess. Meanwhile, Prince Aquastide and Elliot are walking down a spiral staircase into a forbidden archive within the royal library, a place only the royal family can enter. This special collection contains many ancient books about fairies, and Aquastide is thinking about the king of the forest fairies' throne. When they reach a door, Elliot asks if Aquastide is positive Lady Tiara Rose is inside. Elliot expresses his frustration that he cannot accompany the prince, but Aquastide reaches for the door, stating that those are the rules and he will be fine on his own as he begins to pass through. Elliot simply tells him to please be careful. Aquastide enters a massive, circular library filled with endless bookshelves. He pulls a book, thinking that if he were blessed by the forest fairies, he could find the fairy king. He muses that the king of the forest fairies is the most capricious of all and that no one would ever imagine he would deign to appear before a human. Aquastide never dreamed the fairy king would take an interest in Tiara, who is from another country. He flips through another book, noting that while the forest fairies have given Tiara their blessings, the king himself has not, though he worries it might only be a matter of time. Looking increasingly stressed, Aquastide thinks, "Damn it. Where is she?" He was sure this archive would have records of a path to the fairy king. He flips through a tattered old book, observing that accounts of the sea fairies are common, but information on the forest fairies is rare, and he makes a mental note to have the text transcribed. He continues his search, flipping through books and thinking that while few previous kings gained the forest fairies' favor, he is certain at least one did. Suddenly, his eyes land on a specific text. He reads that the path to the king of the forest fairies' throne starts somewhere in the castle. He questions this, thinking he knows every hidden passage and recalls nothing of the sort. The text then reveals the location, in the queen's private chambers. Aquastide realizes the royal family member the fairy king liked must have been a queen. He immediately turns to leave, knowing he must find the throne right away. Just as he turns, the fairy king Keith appears behind him, chuckling. Keith smiles and greets him, observing that Aquastide is the very picture of desperation. Aquastide glares, gritting his teeth as he identifies the fairy king. Aquastide angrily accuses Keith of abducting his princess. Keith just smirks, remarking that fairies are capricious and he didn't intend to do it at first. The prince tells him to stop joking and reminds him that Tiara Rose is his fiancée. Keith replies that he isn't joking, causing Aquastide to growl, "Teeth." The fairy king then looks at Aquastide and declares that he will have Tiara instead. Enraged, Aquastide lunges at him, yelling to stop messing around, but his fist is stopped by a barrier of light. Aquastide grits his teeth, unable to break through. The scene flashes back to Aquastide trying to force his way into the queen's chambers, held back by guards telling him he can't enter. Elliot protests, but the guards explain the queen is away on official duties and they must wait for her directive, pleading with the prince to stop. One guard confirms no one is allowed to enter, but Aquastide demands they open the door, vowing to take full responsibility. Elliot accepts his decision, and a guard, while locking the door, says they will seek confirmation from Queen Laviena. Another guard whispers that the prince must have a good reason for such drastic actions. Inside the room, Elliot pulls back a large tapestry with a whoosh, revealing a hidden click mechanism. Aquastide apologizes for the trouble, but Elliot, facing the new opening, says it's not at all. The prince explains that Tiara Rose has been kidnapped by the Fairy King and there is no emergency more pressing. Elliot smiles, mentioning that his own duties are delayed, but it isn't an issue, as Lady Aishira was also very worried about Tiara Rose. Aquastide steps toward a bright, shimmering portal as Elliot asks how it looks. Aquastide peers into the light, confirming that according to the text, the path should be right there. He stands before the portal, his expression determined as he observes it is sealed with ancient and complex magic. Clenching his fist, he resolves that he must hurry to get Tiara back and that they have to open it at all costs. Prince Aquastide and Elliot stand before a shimmering, leafy portal. This magical entrance is described as a beacon of hope, a secret path to the Fairy King known only to the royal family and left by their ancestors for emergencies. Elliot, looking shocked, declares that he cannot let the prince go alone. Elliot insists he will go too, but Aquastide initially refuses, telling him to stay and keep watch. Elliot thinks to himself that he must accompany the prince, who tends to become overly fixated and lose his judgment when Lady Tiara Rose is involved. Aquastide finally sighs and agrees, saying fine, and that they should go. They step through the portal into a beautiful garden path lined with roses. Elliot remarks that it is another impressive passageway, and Aquastide notes that the forest fairies seem to like these flowers. As they venture deeper, Elliot explains that it is a magical pathway and his search magic has been unable to reveal much. Aquastide agrees that if even Elliot cannot scan it, the magic is likely beyond their reach. Elliot adds that he cannot see how far the path goes. Aquastide, however, is focused, stating that the Fairy King should be just ahead and they must press onward, as he wants to get there quickly. Suddenly, an arrow swipes through the air toward Aquastide. Elliot shouts the prince's name in warning. Aquastide calmly raises his sword, blocking the projectile with a ping as it glances off the blade. A voice calls his move predictable. After the arrow thuds to the ground, Elliot rushes to Aquastide's side to ask if he is alright. The prince replies that he is fine and that they have no time to lose. He is determined to reach Tiara as soon as possible and decides to walk ahead of Elliot, though he is surprised someone set up a trap. As they continue through the rustle of leaves, the ground suddenly gives way beneath Elliot with a "W," and he cries out as he falls. Aquastide reacts immediately, grabbing Elliot's hand and pulling him back to safety with a "Pay-T." Elliot lands with a crunch and pisses the dust from his clothes as Aquastide urges him to hurry. Aquastide now takes the lead, landing with a thud after leaping over obstacles, while Elliot follows closely behind, ing away magical vines with his sword. Elliot reflects that with the prince leading the way and him clearing the path, no one would be able to tell who was the servant and who was the master. Meanwhile, Tiara Rose etching as she stirs from her sleep on the giant, warm and fluffy flower bed. She blinks as her eyes open to the sight of many cute fairies fluttering around her, exclaiming that she is awake and offering her fruits. Tiara Rose sits up, suddenly remembering she needs to return to Prince Aqua or he will worry. She wonders where Keith is and why the fairies are here, recalling that Keith had brought her to this place against her will. The fairies fly over, cheerfully telling her that His Majesty isn't there and asking her to play. Conflicted, Tiara Rose agrees to play but is clearly in a hurry. The fairies insist, eat it, and she reluctantly takes a chomp of fruit. She is immediately swarmed with more offerings of apples and oranges, with the fairies encouraging her to eat lots. Tiara Rose finds herself stuffed behind a mountain of food, munching away while thinking that she cannot turn them down even though she is in a hurry. She finally holds up her hands, smiling and saying she cannot eat so much. The fairies beam, asking if it was delicious. Tiara Rose confirms it was, oh yes, very delicious. She then stands, thanking them but stating she is full. She looks around the pleasant, forest-like room as the fairies sadly ask if she is already returning to the castle, begging her to play more. Tiara Rose turns and asks the fairies what she should do to get back to the castle. A fairy points, saying, over there, and Tiara Rose apologizes, promising to play again next time. The fairies guide her down a hall, and she steps toward another door, which she clicks open. A fairy points and says, here, leading her through a leafy passage into a surprising new room, a kitchen. Tiara Rose glances around, wondering why there is a kitchen and if fairies cook. She inspects jars on the counter, noticing a lack of salt and sugar but finding seasonings made from flowers and berries. Curious, she asks to taste them. The fairy agrees, and Tiara Rose is amazed, identifying one as sweet, one as salty, and another as extra spicy. She marvels at the forest fairies, realizing the pink flower is sweet, the blue is salty, the red is spicy, and a yellow one could be a pepper substitute. The fairies then ask her to make some sweets, offering to help. Tiara Rose is shocked, exclaiming, "Right now!" The fairies begin to sob and plead, "Make some." Tiara Rose protests that she needs to see Prince Aqua, but a fairy informs her it would be a waste, as Keith had the kitchen specially prepared just for her. Tiara Rose is stunned by this news. She giggles, remembering Keith did enjoy her sweets, but she still questions the necessity of baking now. She reflects that the only place she truly needs for cooking is the royal castle with Prince Aqua. Seeing her hesitation, the fairies promise to lead her out after the sweets are done. Rose sighs at their insistence as they please her. Resigned, she inspects the basic baking tools, feeling a pang of disappointment. She rallies, however, thinking that specialized tools are not essential for making something nice. She examines the mysterious forest ingredients, using some in place of eggs and butter, and wonders what the flavor will be. The excited fairies begin to toss ingredients into the bowl, including the sweet flower petals she had sampled. Tiara Rose whimpers as they add things as they please, but she decides to let them, thinking it looks good. They bake the cupcakes in the fairy oven and decorate them with flowers and berries. The completed cupcakes smell wonderful. As the fairies munch on them, Tiara Rose sighs, thinking she wants to go home but also wishes she could have these unique seasonings, though she knows she cannot ask her kidnapper for them. She asks the fairies if they will really show her the way out now. Munch, happily, the fairies exclaim how delicious her sweets are and tell her to leave it to us. They lead her to a large, ornate door. Tiara Rose clicks it open, thinking it is finally the exit. However, she finds herself in a large, worn-out hall with a lone throne at the end, realizing this is not the exit. She walks up the stairs toward the throne, feeling a deep sense of loneliness in the empty room. She then realizes that Prince Aqua must be worried about her. She recalls how jealous he became when he saw her with Keith, and she doesn't want any more misunderstandings, especially since she feels the same envy when he is with other women. A fairy asks who Prince Aqua is and if she loves him. Tiara Rose nods, blushing as she confesses, yes, he is her fiancé and she loves him very much. She clutches her chest, worrying that despite her belief in Aquastide's love, the power of the game is still a force to be reckoned with. At that moment, Keith appears behind her, wrapping his arms around her. Tiara Rose exclaims his name in surprise. Keith rests his chin on her shoulder, saying he really doesn't understand humans. Tiara Rose asks if something happened. Keith smiles and asks if she wants to return to the castle, and when she looks down sadly, he guesses, not really. Tiara Rose quickly refutes him, saying, of course I do. She explains that she doesn't want to be a burden or inconvenience Prince Aqua any further. Keith chuckles, musing that humans are troublesome. He explains that as she is blessed by the forest fairies, she is a valuable asset, not a burden. He tells the princess it is fine for her to just wait there. Just as Tiara Rose looks at him in confusion, a loud bang erupts from the door. The door bursts open, revealing Prince Aquastide, who calls out, Tiara. Tiara Rose is stunned, whispering, Prince Aqua? Aquastide stops, glares fiercely at Keith, who merely smirks in return. Aquastide clenches his fist, demanding that Fairy King Keith release Tiara immediately. Keith calmly replies, and if I were to say no? Aquastide draws his sword with a swish, declaring that then he will take her back by force. Tiara Rose, caught in Keith's grip, covers her mouth in shock as she pleads for them to stop. She worries that a fight must not break out between a human prince and a fairy king over her. Prince Aquastide glares furiously, telling Keith to stop making a fool of him. He declares that he does not care if Keith is the fairy king, he will never forgive him for laying his hands on Tiara. Keith merely smirks, finding it laughable that Aquastide would demand her return when there are plenty of other girls he could choose from. Aquastide angrily shouts that Tiara is the only one he needs. Keith continues his taunts, lifting a swish-y strand of Tiara Rose's hair and bringing it to his lips for a kiss. He claims that he has been desperately in love with everything about her for the longest time. Her hair, her eyes, and her lips. As Aquastide grits his teeth in silent rage, Keith snickers at him. Tiara Rose struggles, begging Keith to let her go, while Aquastide clenches his fists, thinking that he had finally made her his and has no intention of meekly watching her get stolen. Keith smirks at Tiara Rose, telling her that a girl should not interfere in a fight between men, and then whoosh is backward. Both Aquastide and Elliot draw their swords, but Aquastide commands Elliot not to intervene, stating this is a matter between only himself and the Fairy King. Keith, now standing near the throne, mockingly asks if Aquastide truly believes a mere human can defeat a Fairy King. Aquastide whoosh forward, shouting that he cannot afford to lose. Keith easily dodges, float, and sliding away. He remarks, "Oh ho," impressed that Aquastide's skills are not half bad for a human, noting that human kings have always been trained in military combat. Aquastide /es again, yelling that a weak king would never be able to lead his kingdom. The prince's sword meets Keith's fan with a loud clang, and Aquastide looks shocked as he is blocked. Keith smirks and sends Aquastide flying backward with a bang. The prince scuttles to his feet, stunned to have been repelled by a simple folding fan, just as Keith announces it is his turn to attack. With a great OOM, Keith blasts a massive hole in the throne room wall, revealing the rumble of the wind outside. Aquastide stares in shock, realizing they are on a cliff. Tiara Rose looks out, guessing they must be on a high mountain peak. Keith confirms this, stating it is the tallest peak overlooking the entire kingdom. He warns Aquastide that it is a long fall, but the prince retorts that he will be fine as long as he doesn't fall and begins to chant, "Water, spring forth." A slosh of water magic encases Aquastide's sword. Keith glances at this, finding it interesting. Aquastide checks that Tiara Rose, who is watching anxiously, is a safe distance away, and then unleashes a blast of wind. Tiara Rose clasps her hands, praying that neither Prince Aqua nor Keith gets hurt. The charge is successful, knocking Keith's fan from his hand with a clatter. Keith examines his hand, dismissing the injury as just a scratch. Aquastide, now with a cut on his own face, scrapes his sword on the floor, ready to continue, as Tiara Rose covers her mouth in terror. As both men raise their weapons for a final blow, Tiara Rose runs between them, screaming, "Please, that's enough." Both fighters look horrified, trying to stop their attacks, but the combined whoosh of energy erupts and sends Tiara Rose flying backward. She screams, "Kyria," as she is blown off the cliff. Aquastide immediately yells, "Tiara," and is over the edge after her. Elliot screams for them both from the broken wall, while Keith says, "Crap," and summons the wind. As they fall, Aquastide reaches for Tiara Rose and pulls her into a tight hug. Tiara Rose, blushing and crying, whispers, "Pia Prince Aqua?" Aquastide squeezes her, telling her, finally, he can hold her close and that he will never let her go again. He apologizes for making her feel uneasy, calling himself powerless. Tiara Rose shakes her head, protesting, "No," and confesses that she was the one at fault for being jealous of Lady Ishira. Hearing she was jealous, Aquastide gasps and says, "Oops," before kissing her multiple times as they continue falling down. He pulls back, his face bruised, and smiles, saying, "I'm sorry." Tiara Rose blushes, happy he feels that way, and he kisses her again, thinking they should save the rest for tonight. Aquastide tells Rose to hold on tight, and she squeezes him, replying, "Oh okay." She thinks that even in this danger, she isn't scared because she knows he will protect her. Aquastide then shouts, "Sky fairies, answer my call." A large, winged figure appears, sighing, "Good grief," and calling Aquastide reckless for picking a fight with another fairy king, but agrees to help. Aquastide thanks the sky fairies and commands the sky to transform into wings to cushion their fall. Giant, feathered wings sprout from Aquastide's back, and they soar over the kingdom. Tiara Rose looks down at the beautiful city below, thinking it is amazing. She clenches her fist, realizing that Prince Aqua and his people are working hard to protect this kingdom, while she was only focused on her own petty jealousy. Tears tumble down her face as she leans against him, vowing to support this kingdom together with him from now on. Back in the throne room, Tiara Rose gives both Aquastide and Keith an hour-long lecture, standing with her hands on her hips and puffing her cheeks out with a HMH. The two kings stand meekly and apologize. Aquastede then smiles, asking Tiaros forgiveness and promising to spend more time with her. Keith smirks, declaring he will simply come over to hang out more frequently. Aquastede retorts that Tiaros will be too busy with him, to which Keith tisks and suggests he will just visit at night. Aquastede replies that in that case, they will just have to share a bedroom. Tiaros, caught between them, yells, "Please cut it out." Tiaros sits on the throne, completely drained, while Aquastede and Keith sizzle as they glare at each other. The prince slap Keith's hand away. Tiaros, thinking like a queen, wonders if there is a way to make them get along for the good of the kingdom. A fairy appears with a cupcake, giving her an idea. She thinks the sweets might lighten their moods, but since there is only one, she breaks it in half. She offers them the pieces, explaining she baked them with the fairies. She explains her reasoning. She likes Prince Aqua, but she also wants the kingdom to prosper, hand in hand with the forest fairies. She believes if the two kings join forces, the kingdom will be even more prosperous. Aquastede smiles, touched by this, but Keith says, each, adding that liking Aquastede alone won't cut it. He pats Tiaros' head, but Aquastede slaps his hand away again, telling him not to touch his fiancée. Tiaros looks confused. Aquastede then kneels and offers his half of the cupcake, telling her to eat it. Keith immediately mirrors him, pushing his half toward her and saying, "Eat this too." Tiaros is flustered as they both chomp the pieces into her mouth, surprised they are suddenly so in sync. Aquastede then asks her to work with them to support the kingdom. Aquastede sighs, "Phew," and Keith smirks, "Heh." The fairies, Kaya, telling Tiaros she looks like a king sitting on the throne. Suddenly, both Aquastede and Keith grab her hands and sit on the arms of the throne, each wearing a small crown. Tiaros shrinks down, mortified, thinking it looks like she has two kings at her beck and call, which was not her intention. Aquastede laughs that she suits the part, while Keith leans in, crying that, "This isn't funny." Both men chuckle as Aquastede touches her face, and they all look to the future of this kingdom. Prince Heartknight's lounging indoors while reading a book, looking annoyed as he rolls over. He complains to himself that he wants to go see Tiara but hasn't had an opportunity because of that bastard, while an attendant remarks that His Majesty hasn't been seeing Tiara lately. The scene then shifts to Tiaros' beautiful garden, where she and Prince Aquastede are spending much more time together. They are sitting close on a garden bench near a fountain, having been together more often since the incident involving Keith. Aquastede gently takes Tiaros' hand, expressing concern that her gardening will cause her hands to get calluses. Tiaros insists she'll be fine and will only be watering the plants, prompting Aquastede to tenderly brush a kiss against her hand. Tiaros then holds up Aquastede's hand, pointing out that his own hands are covered in calluses. He smiles softly and asks her not to strain herself, explaining that his calluses are from holding his sword and are marks of achievement for him. Tiaros sweetly counters that the new species of flowers appearing in her garden, thanks to the forest fairies' blessings, are her marks of achievement. Aquastede agrees that he knows but admits he still doesn't like the idea of her hands becoming rough. He continues to hold and gently rub her hands, telling her he likes their softness and wants to keep holding them. Tiaros blushes, addressing him as Prince Aqua, while thinking about his strong, rugged hands that will protect her. Just as she begins to think, "I, too," Aquastede interrupts, asking if she remembers what they discussed before. Tiaros becomes flustered as he tugs her sleeve, thinking that she hasn't forgotten her promise to call him by his name but is still too shy. Aquastede smiles and asks what she was going to say, but Tiaros blushes deeply and declares it's a secret. Aquastede chuckles, teasing her that it's too bad, and that she already knows what he wanted to say. Tiaros pouts, calling him a meanie as she reflects on her current bliss. She thinks about how her year of bridal training flew by filled with such sweet and enchanting times. Tiaros feels confident that even though the sea fairies hate her, the forest fairies love her, and she will be able to help the kingdom prosper. The couple then returns to the kingdom of Lapis Lazuli for their wedding reception. Tiaros stands outside her family's mansion, observing that the house and garden are as beautiful as ever. She notes that even the nearby trees haven't changed since Prince Aqua used to visit her stealthily. She smiles brightly at him, saying that returning home makes her realize once again how very happy she is to be by his side. Aquastede replies that it's nothing but then asks what's the matter as Tiaros looks toward the house. Standing in the garden, Aquastede teases that he should be the one saying he's happy, but Tiaros takes his hand and insists she couldn't be happier. As they walk to the entrance, the household staff, including Philin, warmly welcome Tiara Rose home. Tiara Rose tears up as she greets her mother, who remarks that she looks happy. Tiara Rose embraces her mother, who asks to be told all about her time at Marine Forest and what happened over the year Tiara Rose was away. They agree to have a long talk later. Meanwhile, Tiara Rose's father grumbles that it's difficult for men to join in on women's conversations, while Aquastide watches with a small smile. Prince Aquastide politely offers to keep Tiara Rose's father company, suggesting they share the fine wine they brought as a gift. The father thanks him, expressing his immense happiness that his daughter is marrying the prince. He reflects on the dreadful graduation party, feeling sick remembering it, and is relieved Tiara Rose avoided a horrible married life. Just then, a servant interrupts, apologizing and announcing that an unexpected guest has arrived. The servant reveals the visitors are Prince Heart Knights and Lady Akari. Tiara Rose's father becomes furious, shouting for them to be sent away. He asks Tiara Rose if she has forgotten what that girl did to her. Tiara Rose, however, insists that she would like to speak with Lady Akari. Aquastide and Prince Heart Knights both agree with her father, with Aquastide pointing out that the wedding reception is the day after tomorrow and Tiara Rose should rest. Tiara Rose thinks about Akari, the heroine of the Otome game, The Ring of Lapis Lazuli, who was infatuated with Prince Aqua and even attacked Tiara Rose to steal him away. Tiara Rose reflects that Akari is a hopeless romantic who sometimes doesn't read the room, but she can't bring herself to hate her. She remembers a letter Akari sent encouraging her not to lose to the sequel's heroine and stating she would do her best with Prince Heart Knights. Tiara Rose explains that while she understands her father's concern, she wants to talk to Akari because of that letter. She pleads with her father, who sighs and relents, commenting on her stubborn side and wondering aloud where she gets it. Philin mutters under her breath that Tiara Rose gets it from him. The father agrees to allow the meeting with just Lady Akari on one condition. Prince Aquastide must accompany her. He then instructs his staff to show Prince Heart Knights to a separate room to wait and tells a worried Philin that they must respect Tiara Rose's wishes. Philin sternly accepts, vowing to see that through, as she spins and walks away, leaving the other servants with a sense of foreboding. Tiara Rose apologizes to Aquastide for her selfish demand, but he chuckles and smiles, telling her he likes granting her selfish requests, which makes her feel relieved. They enter the room to find Akari already eating snacks. Akari brightens upon seeing Tiara Rose, greeting her enthusiastically and saying she's glad Tiara Rose seems fine. Tiara Rose is surprised by how friendly she is. Akari then notices Prince Aqua is there too, and Aquastide offers a brief greeting. Akari explains that she is now doing her best with Prince Heart Knights, and since the game's ending is concluded, it feels like she's playing a whole new game. Tiara Rose is inwardly impressed, thinking Akari is a frightening child for treating her life like a new Otome game. Akari then congratulates them on their wedding reception, wishing them happiness, and Tiara Rose and Aquastide thank her. Tiara Rose internally giggles, thinking Akari seems soundly defeated by the sequel's heroine. Akari's tone changes as she asks if Tiara Rose was bullied during the past year, specifically by the sea fairies. Tiara Rose confirms that they hate her. Akari exclaims that she knew it, as it's the same as the game. She then remembers her gift and rummages through her bag to present a box containing pierced earrings, one honey pink and one dark blue. Akari proudly explains that since only clip-on earrings existed, she created pierced earrings, the first of their kind in this world. She says they can't be mass-produced because they are also amulets imbued with her holy prayer, as she is now recognized as the princess who performs the holy prayer. She tells them to each wear one, noting the colors match Tiara Rose and Prince Aqua. As Akari giggles about her own awkward but adorable relationship with Prince Heart Knights, Tiara Rose notices Akari is wearing a yellow earring. Tiara Rose accepts the earrings and says she'd like for them to wear them, making Akari look happy. Aquastide agrees, but adds that he's surprised to see her and Lady Akari getting along so well. Tiara Rose thinks to herself that they can't exactly explain it because they're both from Japan. Aquastide points out that Akari did attack her in the past. Akari nods, admitting it happened, but declares they are now comrades in taking down the sequel's heroine. Aquastide looks confused by the word sequel. Tiara Rose shakes her head and defends her new friendship, acknowledging Akari did horrible things but reminding Aquastide that he was there to rescue her. Akari insists they are close friends now. Tiara Rose then privately recalls Akari's letter, which was written in Japanese. The message, "I won't forgive you if you lose to the sequel's heroine," was a true encouragement that made Tiara Rose promise herself she wouldn't lose to Lady Aishira and would always choose Prince Aqua. Aquastide watches her, saying, "Geez, and telling her that someday she will have to tell him the whole story. He leans in close, saying he knows there's something she can't tell him, and warns her not to keep it from him for too long. He playfully taps her nose and tells her to prepare herself. Tiara Rose blushes, thinking he will surely make her tell him everything soon. Akari interrupts, asking them to be lovey-dovey when she's not around. Tiara Rose apologizes, and Akari smiles, saying Tiara Rose must be happy. Akari then prepares to leave, having delivered the gift and knowing Prince Heartknights is waiting. Outside, Prince Heartknights is seen peering into the room, wondering what is taking her so long. After Akari leaves, Aquasteed asks Tiara Rose if she wants to put the earrings on, and she nods enthusiastically. She reveals that Akari also lent her an instrument to pierce her ears with. Tiara Rose privately recognizes the tool as a piercer commonly used in Japan, musing that in a Japanese otome game world, it's not that strange for it to exist. Aquasteed asks if she is going to use it. Tiara Rose explains how it works, and when Aquasteed asks if she's afraid, she confidently says she's sure. She isn't bothered because she had her ears pierced in her previous life, though she thinks a regular young lady would probably faint. Aquasteed then surprises her by asking her to pierce his ears. Tiara Rose gently holds his ear, touching the soft lobe. She internally thinks how cute it would be if he were scared but doesn't say her thoughts aloud. She warns him it will hurt a bit and tells him where to hold still. Aquasteed says he'll be fine. Tiara Rose quickly uses the piercer and announces she's all done, remarking that the piercing turned out beautifully. Aquasteed looks at his new earring in a hand mirror as Tiara Rose admires her matching one. He then tells her he was thinking of doing hers for her. The chapter ends with a shot of them both, now wearing the pierced earrings in their respective colors, sharing a wish to be happy at the wedding reception for Tiara Rose and Prince Aquasteed, where guests cheer and throw flower petals, offering their congratulations. Tiara Rose's parents watch the happy couple, and her father expresses his gladness that she has found happiness. Her mother, overcome with emotion, apologizes for her tearful appearance, but her husband reassures her, saying he is also deeply moved by how happy Tiara Rose and Aquasteed look. In the background, Philin and another attendant are also shown crying tears of joy. Tiara Rose approaches her parents, telling them she feels very blessed. She reflects that her father's strictness and the experiences her mother gave her have now become her strength. Her father smiles, happy to see her smiling, while her mother wishes her a happy life in Marine Forest, which Tiara Rose promises to have. Tiara Rose then shares a tearful embrace with her mother, wishing for her parents' happiness as well. The reception concluded without incident, and the following days were spent in hectic preparations for the official wedding ceremony, which was set to be held in 1 month. Later, Tiara Rose is seen diligently working on wedding preparations, reviewing documents on a sofa. She mentions that the guest list is done but the diplomatic details still need meticulous confirmation, though she feels she has memorized it all. Prince Aquasteed joins her, expressing concern that she is working too hard. As he blows on his tea, Tiara Rose observes that he looks tired. She reassures him that the work wasn't difficult because she already knows the key figures from each country. Aquasteed smiles, impressed by her as always, and then leans his head onto her shoulder to rest. Tiara Rose is surprised and thinks about how impressive he is, remembering he can memorize documents after just one look. While Aquasteed rests, Tiara Rose blushes, thinking about how he is spoiling her and noticing his long eyelashes. She giggles to herself, finding him adorable, while he thinks to himself that she is as cute as always. Nearby, an attendant mumbles that he wants a lover too. The day before the wedding ceremony arrives. Tiara Rose reflects on her day of pampering, which included a massage and having her nails polished, noting the similarities to Japanese customs. She eats a snack as her heart beats with excitement, thinking that tomorrow she will finally become Prince Aqua's wife. Philin is already sobbing nearby, exclaiming how beautiful Tiara Rose looks and how glad she is that the marriage is happening without a hitch. Tiara Rose gently scolds her for crying so much already, but Philin insists she just can't wait. Philin serves Tiara Rose tea to calm her down and reminds her to rest early for her early start the next day. Tiara Rose thanks her, planning to have her hair styled and review the itinerary from noon onwards. Their conversation is interrupted by 3 loud knocks at the door. Philin is confused as there were no appointments scheduled, and she goes to check who it is. Tiara Rose suddenly feels a sense of déjà vu, wondering if this pattern has happened before. Philin returns and announces that Lady Aishira has come to see her. Tiara Rose is shocked, recalling the graduation party, and nervously thinks that the sequel's heroine visiting the day before the wedding is terrifying, worrying Aishira might be there to stop it. Despite her fears, Tiara Rose allows her in. Aishira enters, apologizing for the intrusion, and Tiara Rose politely welcomes her. Aishira smiles brightly, congratulating Tiara Rose on her wedding. She explains she won't stay long but felt she had to offer her best wishes in person. Aishira then correctly guesses Tiara Rose's unspoken thoughts, asking if she believed Aishira was in love with Prince Aquastide. Aishira clarifies that she doesn't really understand love and is trusting her father to find a good partner for her. Tiara Rose is stunned, realizing the sequel's heroine isn't pursuing any of the game's love interests. She feels a pang of guilt, wondering if her presence caused this. She thinks that Aishira and Prince Aqua would have been a well-suited couple if not for her, but she knows she cannot hand him over. Before she can reply, Lady Akari suddenly bursts in, shouting, "That's enough." Akari introduces herself to Aishira, who greets her politely. Akari then criticizes Aishira, saying the sequel's heroine should be more cheerful, just like in the game. Tiara Rose and Philin try to quiet her, but Aishira kindly insists she doesn't mind. Tiara Rose whispers to Akari, asking why she is there. Akari replies that she wanted to see the sequel's lucky heroine and complains that Aishira doesn't seem to be having any fun. Tiara Rose reflects on Akari's love for Otome games and confirms her suspicion that Aishira is not reincarnated, as she didn't react to mentions of modern sweets. Aishira observes that Tiara Rose and Akari seem very close. Akari proudly confirms they are friends and then points at Aishira, warning her not to get too close to her friend's husband. Aishira looks distressed by this and apologizes to Tiara Rose, saying she should have been more considerate. Tiara Rose immediately reassures Aishira that she shouldn't worry and tells Akari to stop. Akari apologizes for causing distress. Tiara Rose internally notes that Aishira is a kind and lovely child, as expected of a heroine, but finds the situation frightening. Akari, meanwhile, mentally lists the sequel's capture targets and then notices Aishira's dark blue ribbon. She realizes this is the game's indicator for a character route, concluding that Aishira is on Prince Aqua's route. Philin interrupts to announce Prince Aquastide's imminent arrival. Aishira takes this as her cue to leave, apologizing again for imposing. Akari says she also came alone, just to see the end of the sequel, and that she will leave as well. In a separate scene, Akari stands on a balcony overlooking the town, thinking that she likes Tiara Rose as a friend and will not allow Aishira to ruin her wedding. On the morning of the wedding, Aishira is in her room, hugging a pillow. She replays Akari's warning in her mind, wondering if she truly had romantic feelings for Prince Aquastide. She concludes she doesn't, viewing him as an exemplary and dazzling person but not someone she is compatible with. She believes holding feelings of love for him would be impudent, as she is meant to marry for her family's sake and has never considered marrying for love. She decides the tightness in her chest must be guilt towards Tiara Rose, not love. An attendant then knocks and enters, announcing that her carriage is ready. As Aishira stands to leave, the attendant compliments the dark blue ribbon she is wearing at the Marine Forest Cathedral, a place where, according to legend, couples are married with the blessings of fairies. Light from both the sun and moon shines through the stained glass, transforming into rays of blessings for those below. Inside, Tiara Rose stands in her elaborate wedding dress, her heart pounding nervously. She anxiously asks her friends if she looks weird. Her friend Akari immediately reassures her, telling her she is the most beautiful girl in the world and that she should have confidence in herself. Her other friend, Philin, agrees, telling her she looks very beautiful. Tiara Rose admires her veil as it floats gently, reflecting that it was woven with flowers sent by the forest fairies and its lace, blessed by the sky fairies, flutters in the breeze. She looks just like a moon fairy. Despite her beautiful appearance, she recalls how scared she had been, uncertain if she would truly be able to marry Prince Aqua. She sighs, remembering how she had been mulling over the possibility that he might choose Lady Aishira at the last minute. Now, however, she realizes she won't have to fret about that any longer. An attendant then informs Tiara Rose that it is time for her to make her appearance, and she quietly agrees. As Tiara Rose begins her walk, she sees Prince Aquastide waiting for her, looking calm and composed at the front of the cathedral. She thanks Philin as she passes the pews while guests clap for her arrival. Tiara Rose thinks about the cathedral's two entrances. Her path begins from the door of happiness, while Prince Aqua's path began from the door of determination. The two blue virgin roads, representing their respective paths, merge at the center of the room and flow into a single white carpet. This symbolizes a couple's hope for their future to be dyed in both their colors. As she walks, Tiara Rose suddenly wonders why her heart is aching so much. Tears begin to drip down her face. She had always thought she simply respected his highness, but now she questions if she was actually yearning for him, or if she has truly fallen in love. Her gaze drifts to Lady Aishira, who is sitting in the pews and also crying, and Tiara Rose remembers Aishira's desperate plea, "Please don't get too close to my friend's husband." Suddenly, Prince Aquastide strides forward and firmly grabs Tiara Rose's arm, pulling her toward him. Meanwhile, Lady Aishira clutches her chest, feeling a throbbing pain. She desperately denies that this pain in her chest could be because of love or romantic feelings. Watching this, Akari observes that the event she had been expecting has finally occurred. Akari reflects on the game's sequel, which features an event where a capture target marries another character. In that scenario, the heroine is able to stop the wedding. The condition for this event is that the heroine must wear a ribbon in the capture target's image color to the ceremony. Akari had been concerned about the ribbon Lady Aishira had been wearing since the previous day. While the probability of the event happening was low, it wasn't zero. Akari admits to herself that she loves this wedding gatecrash event because it's thrilling to see a groom choose the heroine over his bride. Akari quickly glances around, relieved that no one seems to have noticed her thoughts. Above all else, she is determined not to allow her friend's blissful wedding to be ruined. Just then, the Fairy King Keith appears beside her with a smile, surprising both Akari and Philin. He remarks that he feels the exact same way. Keith then turns his attention to Lady Aishira, addressing her by name. He warns her that if she intends to meddle with Tiara Rose and Prince Aquastide, he will not forgive her. Lady Aishira, realizing that she will never be able to stand beside Prince Aquastide, quickly insists that she would never do such a thing. Keith seems satisfied with her response. Tiara Rose, still standing with Prince Aqua, hears the sound of someone crying. She looks over and sees Lady Aishira wearing a ribbon in Prince Aqua's color, and it confirms her suspicion. Lady Aishira is in love with him. Prince Aqua then looks around the room and his gaze lands on the crying Lady Aishira. Tiara Rose sees him notice Aishira and her panic returns. The guests begin to clamor as Prince Aqua, seeing Tiara Rose's distress, pulls her into a tight, squeezing embrace. He apologizes softly, saying it seems he has made her worry once again. Tiara Rose then watches in horror as Prince Aquastide releases her, turns, and begins walking toward Lady Aishira's seat. Tiara Rose's heart sinks as she internally pleads, "Please, don't go to her," fearing he is about to choose Aishira over her. Prince Aquastide stops in front of Lady Aishira. He formally thanks her for attending the wedding and then makes a clear declaration. He will treasure Tiara Rose and her alone. Lady Aishira, accepting his words, offers her congratulations to both him and Lady Tiara Rose. Lady Aishira looks at the couple, thinking to herself that while she truly loved Prince Aquastide, she has now put those feelings behind her. She genuinely wishes for them to become happier than anyone else. Prince Aqua offers her a quiet apology, but she shakes her head to show it's all right. Overwhelmed with relief and emotion, Tiara Rose bursts into tears in Prince Aqua's arms. She can't believe Prince Aqua would say such wonderful words. He gently comforts her, asking her not to cry. From her seat, Lady Aishira reflects that she is thankful to Prince Aqua for helping her discover the feeling of love, and she sincerely wishes them happiness. Prince Aqua chuckles warmly, telling Tiara Rose that she is way too adorable when she cries. He teases that it's so vexing it makes him want to eat her up. As she hiccups, he gives her a small kiss, remarking that it's too bad, as her crying stops. The officiant then congratulates the couple and instructs the groom to present the ring imbued with oath magic to the bride. The ceremony is explained as being different from those in Japan, as it was in the game, the Ring of Lapis Lazuli. The groom prepares a magical ring and casts a spell embodying an oath onto it. Because this imbues a bond deeper than words, a verbal vow isn't required. Prince Aqua kisses the ring, telling Tiara Rose he has poured all his magic into it. He takes her hand and asks if she will accept it. Tiara Rose agrees. He slides the ring on her finger, declaring that with this, she is his, and he will never let her go. The officiant then announces that the bride may give the groom her oath kiss. The bride's oath takes the form of a kiss on the groom's forehead, brimming with her magic. By pouring out her magic, she engraves her existence onto him and swears to spend a lifetime by his side. Tiara Rose blushes and agrees. She presses her lips to his forehead, whispering that she won't let him go either. Finally, the officiant declares that they may kiss the bride. Prince Aqua looks at Tiara Rose, tells her he loves her, and promises to cherish her for the rest of his life and make her happy. She replies that she loves him too. They share a deep and passionate kiss as the cathedral bells ring and the guests applaud loudly. Suddenly, a brilliant light fills the cathedral, looking as if stars are falling inside. The guests murmur in confusion, wondering what the light is and if it could be an enemy. A voice rings out, offering a toast to the next king and queen. The source of the light is revealed to be the fairy King Keith. He declares that he shall bless the couple with good health and happiness, and bless the kingdom with peace. The guests are overjoyed and astonished, celebrating that the couple has received a blessing from the king of the forest fairies. They erupt in cheers, congratulating Prince Aquasteed and wishing Tiara Rose happiness. As flower petals rain down on the couple, Akari comments that Tiara Rose looks especially beautiful adorned with flowers and that it makes her want her. Philin quickly warns her to be quiet, saying Prince Aqua will be furious with her if he hears her say such things. Prince Aqua notices Tiara Rose is crying again and gently asks why. She smiles brightly, explaining that she is just so happy the tears won't stop flowing. She feels overjoyed that she was able to become Prince Aqua's wife with the blessings of so many people. With that, Tiara Rose's time being at the mercy of the game draws to a close. Her true reality begins now. Later, after the wedding ceremony, Prince Aquasteed is shown feeling uncharacteristically restless. He fidgets in his chair, thinking that the girl he loves, the one he has wanted to hold in his arms for the longest time, has finally become his. He recalls how adorable Tiara was during the ceremony, so adorable that he briefly thought he should lock her up somewhere. He impatiently waits for Tiara to hurry over to him. Just then, Tiara Rose knocks and enters the room, apologizing for keeping him waiting. He tells her it's fine and gestures for her to come to him. He thinks about the gift he has for her, which took some time to prepare but he can finally give to her. He had previously consulted with Lady Aishira to work out a design and then had the best craftsman in the kingdom create an item that would suit Tiara more than anything in the world. Tiara Rose, flustered, sits down and remarks that she is so glad they received blessings from so many people, including the king of the forest fairies. Prince Aqua tells her she must be tired after dealing with all the guests. She agrees that it was certainly a happy day. He chuckles, adding that while he is happy, he was also displeased because it felt like the fairy king, who favors Tiara so much, appeared just to steal her from him. Prince Aqua then gently pulls Tiara Rose into a hug and tells her he has a present for her. He holds out a small, beautifully wrapped box, saying he hopes she likes it. Tiara Rose opens the box and gasps. Inside is a lovely hair ornament in Prince Aqua's signature color. She tells him she is incredibly touched and that it's lovely. When she asks if she may put it on, he offers to help her, smiling because he's glad she likes it. After placing the ornament in her hair, he tells her it suits her very well. Tiara Rose thanks him, then shyly corrects herself, calling him Aqua instead of Prince Aqua. He praises her and kisses her, whispering that she feels good. Aqua tells her he will never get tired of touching her like this. Tiara Rose smiles and replies that she wouldn't tire of it either, concluding that they are a well-matched couple. She then hesitates before asking him, "By the way, since when were you that close with Lady Akari?" Prince Aqua's expression turns serious as he recalls that Tiara Rose had been hurt by the situation. He explains that it all started from a letter that arrived when they first set out for Marine Forest. He says that Lady Akari gave him some encouragement. When Tiara Rose asks what kind of encouragement, Aqua simply squishes her cheeks, calling her name. Tiara Rose, blushing, explains what Akari told her. She said that Aqua was very popular amongst the ladies, so Akari told her not to lose. Prince Aqua is shocked to learn they had such a conversation. He firmly tells Tiara Rose that there is no place in his heart for any other women to begin with and that he only loves her. He then realizes he made her sad by not telling her sooner and apologizes. Tiara Rose clarifies that she was the one who got lonely on her own, but she isn't lonely anymore because Aqua is always by her side. She hugs him tightly. Aqua smiles and embraces her back, promising that he won't ever make her feel lonely again. He thinks to himself how cute her pose is as she peers up at him and wonders how long he could go on just thinking about how adorable she is. Tiara Rose Lapis Clementile, the daughter of Marquis Lapis, has recently become the wife of Aquasteed, the prince of the great nation Marine Forest. Her name has changed to Tiara Rose Lapis Marine Forest, and she was given the Lapis title as a blessing from the fairy King Keith. This blessing has made her incredibly influential, raising her status even higher than that of a duke. As she prepares to become the next queen, Tiara Rose finds herself living through very hectic days. She is currently in her new room, which is connected directly to Prince Aquasteed's bedroom. She reflects on how much he is pampering her, as he even prepared a private garden just for them and a special kitchen just for her. He has also sent her some of her favorite sweets. As an attendant fits her for a dress, Tiara Rose blushes, feeling incredibly glad that he is so thoughtful. Tiara Rose has been busy all morning with these fittings. Attendants keep bringing out rows of new dresses, with even more held in storage, and she thinks it might be a bit too much. The designer, however, is extremely passionate, meticulously adjusting her posture and promising to make Tiara Rose the fairest of them all. The fitting session seems to have no end in sight, and Tiara Rose, feeling a bit overwhelmed, simply leaves things to the enthusiastic designer. Her lady-in-waiting, Philin Sunfist, explains that as the wife of His Highness Aquastede, Tiara Rose's official duties are set to increase tenfold, so they still need to come up with more outfits. Philin mulls over which dresses would suit Tiara Rose before deciding to add even more options to the mix. Philin notices Tiara Rose looks weary and asks if she is tired. Tiara Rose first denies it but then quietly admits that she is, in fact, a little tired. She thinks about how seamstresses, nobles, and merchants constantly arrive to greet her every day. These greetings are part of her official duties, leaving her with very little time to rest. Philin kindly offers to adjust Tiara Rose's ribbon, after which she can take a short break. Once an attendant finishes adjusting the dress, Tiara Rose is told she can finally rest. Philin then brings her a drink, thanking her for her hard work. Philin happily says that after they adjust just 2 more dresses, they can tailor any other designs Tiara Rose might like. She also reminds her about a social gathering the next evening, advising her not to overdo it. They still need to confirm all the accessories and cosmetics, and Tiara Rose, holding a case, notes that there are far more items than usual this time. Later, while enjoying a delicious peach-flavored sweet, Tiara Rose reflects on her unique situation. She remembers her previous life as a Japanese person and how she was reincarnated into the world of an otome game she loved, Ring of Lapis Lazuli. She was reborn as the game's villainess, Tiara Rose. In that game's story, her fiancé, the crown prince of her country, fell for the heroine who appeared out of nowhere, even though Tiara Rose herself had done nothing wrong. She continues to recall how, at the condemnation event where she was meant to be exiled, Aquastede, the crown prince of a neighboring country, intervened and proposed to her, saving her and taking her away. This man she married was the main character of the game's sequel. As she finishes her dessert, Tiara Rose thinks that even though the game has ended and she is very happy with her current life, she still feels uneasy at times. She worries that the game's influence might suddenly return and cause Aquasama to fall in love with someone else. Later, Philin asks Tiara Rose if she plans to use her private kitchen that night. Tiara Rose confirms she will, explaining that she wants to make cookies because Aquasama asked for some. Hearing this, the other maids eagerly offer to help, but Philin tells them she will go prepare the kitchen. Tiara Rose watches them leave, feeling motivated by how hard they work for her, and she decides to be more patient with the dress fittings. She then turns back to the many dress designs, noting how fashionable, cute, and beautiful they all are, and claps her hands to resume the fitting. While Tiara Rose is choosing between different lace options, an attendant casually mentions a rumor that the sea has been looking different recently. Tiara Rose asks about the sea, and the attendant clarifies that she hasn't seen it herself, but she heard the color is a bit different. Philin suggests that the sea fairies might be involved, perhaps playing a prank. Tiara Rose, however, grows concerned, privately wondering if this could be the start of an event from the game's sequel. The attendant quickly apologizes for bringing up an unsubstantiated rumor. Tiara Rose reassures her, saying that since Aishira-sama is at the sea, there is no need to worry too much. In her mind, Tiara Rose thinks that since Aishira, who is loved by the sea, is not yet married, it wouldn't be strange if an event involving her were to occur. She silently wishes Aishira-sama the best, whatever might happen. That evening, Tiara Rose is in her kitchen. Philin offers to help her, but Tiara Rose thinks that it's more convenient for her to work alone due to her knowledge from her past life. She feels a little bad for Philin but decides she'll give her some of the finished cookies later. She plans to make just a few cookies and bake them into cute shapes, blushing as she thinks about Aquastede and how she wants to see him soon. Just then, Aquastede enters the kitchen and surprises her with an embrace from behind. He announces he's back and gives her a kiss on the cheek, noting how nice the cookies smell. Tiara Rose welcomes her beloved husband home. Even though they have been together for over a year and are now married, Tiara Rose's heart still pounds in her chest whenever he shows her expressions that are meant only for her. Aquastede looks at the cookies and comments that they are cute today, just like her. Tiara Rose shyly explains she made them in animal shapes. She picks up a bunny-shaped cookie to let him taste it, but she hesitates when he doesn't immediately take it, which is unusual for him. Aquastide notices her pause and asks if something is wrong. Tiara-Rose, shaking slightly, nervously offers him the cookie. Becoming completely flustered, Tiara-Rose holds out the cookie. Aquastide, thinking she is adorable, leans in and gently bites her finger instead of the cookie. He murmurs that the cookie is sweet, but Tiara-Rose is much sweeter. She is embarrassed by his words, but he playfully reminds her that they are a married couple, so this is fine, before asking for just a little more. He then brings up her tea parties. Aquastide mentions he has heard that her forest tea parties are very popular among the young ladies. As Tiara-Rose blushes and he nuzzles her, she confirms it's good to hear they are popular. He glances at the freshly baked cookies and asks if the parties are popular because of her sweets. Tiara-Rose suggests it's likely just because she is the crown prince's wife, but Aquastide immediately disagrees. He says that while the sweets are a big hit, the real reason is that everyone wants to get closer to her. Tiara-Rose dismisses this, and Aquastide teases her, saying that since she loves sweets so much, he might actually get jealous of them. He then explains that marine forest has forest, sky, and sea fairies. While sky and sea fairies are known to bless humans they favor, forest fairies almost never bless humans. Yet, Tiara-Rose was blessed by the forest king Keith himself, placing her under his ultimate protection. He tells her that someone as special as her should never have to worry or feel anxious. Tiara-Rose gets emotional, admitting that as the villainess, she was worried this happy life couldn't last. Aquastide gently encourages her to have more confidence in herself. Tiara-Rose reflects on how she had expected a major upset at their wedding, fearing she would lose him to the heroine, but that never happened. Aquastide adds that she has a solid education and still manages to undervalue herself. He points out that it's incredibly rare for even 1 or 2 royals in history to receive the Forest King's blessing, yet she did. He insists she must have more confidence. He then pouts, saying he's jealous and they should stop talking about Keith, or he might get sulkier. Tiara-Rose smiles, thanks him, and says she will make some tea. She looks at her animal-shaped cookies, which have baked to a lovely color. Aquastide watches her, thinking his wife is incredibly cute and that he wants to hold her more. He decides not to interrupt her precious sweets-making time, knowing the night is still long. As he turns to leave, Tiara-Rose calls his name, holding a tray of tea and cookies. She apologizes, explaining she was lost in thought, and he tells her he's coming back. The next day, however, Tiara-Rose is shown looking at something, thinking to herself that it seems strange.